The Immortal Stranger. Starting as a traveling merchant, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, The Main Body in the Clone. As the leader of the Beiyu sect, how could Beishixin not notice the abnormality of his own magical disciple Shizao? In addition, the intelligence transaction with the confidant of the Empress Sima made him pay more attention to this disciple who suddenly disappeared after the pre-selection. So when Shizao took advantage of the commotion to sneak into the Imperial Mausoleum, Beishixin also let his white bone puppet follow. This is also the main reason why he had been absent-mindedly eating spiritual fruits in the palace before. After all, he had to distract himself to control the actions of the puppet. And when Beishixin found out that Shizao actually relied on a secret passage to enter the interior of the Imperial Mausoleum, his mind became active. Jiang Yan was able to defeat Beishixin so easily before, in addition to the fact that the former's strength was indeed comparable to that of a grandmaster. It was also because the latter did not fight desperately. After all, which of the three major sects would not have a trump card at the level of magical powers? After losing the competition, Beishixin left Wu'ai Mountain in order to concentrate on controlling the bone puppet and get the 7-star map before others and get the opportunity inside. At this moment, his eyes were completely attracted by the 7-star map and he stretched out his hand to take it off the altar. But at this moment, the girl sitting under the altar suddenly said, "If I were you, I wouldn't touch it at this time." Beishixin was stunned and turned his head suddenly to look at the little girl who looked innocent and harmless. Although for many cultivators, the appearance and age on the surface may not be true, but almost no one can disguise themselves as a 1-year-old child, so Beishixin didn't pay much attention to the girl at first, thinking she was a sacrifice. But when she opened her mouth, Beishixin knew that he was careless. He couldn't help but take a few steps back and asked in a cold voice, "Who are you?" "Who am I?" The girl chuckled. "I should be the one asking who you are. Sneaking into the Imperial Mausoleum is at least the fault of the 3 Yi tribes. But I'm in a good mood today, so I won't pursue it. Come forward and talk to me." After she finished speaking, she waved at Beishixin's bone puppet, and the latter walked forward to her involuntarily like a puppet and sat down cross-legged. Bone puppet, a crude spell. The only advantage is that there is an avatar with good combat power in the Gangsha realm, but the disadvantage is that once the connection between the avatar and the original body is interrupted, the puppet's consciousness will become independent and will backfire on its master. Am I right? Bone Scholar Yan Rui? The girl said with a smile. That's right. The Bone Scholar replied respectfully and added, "But I don't want to be Yan Rui. I want to be Beishixin." "That's good, that's good." The girl clapped her hands happily. The original master should also taste the pain of being cloned. That's fair. At this point, she seemed to want to reach out and pat the Bone Scholar on the shoulder, but because her arm was too short, she couldn't reach it at all, so she had to stretch out her finger and tear off the other's entire arm. Then she patted the bloody shoulder in her hand with satisfaction and continued, "You are very good, I like you very much, and decided to give you some rewards." As soon as she finished speaking, the Bone Scholar who was enduring the severe pain found that an inexplicable force had descended upon him. At the same time, maddening whispers rang out in his soul, almost destroying his newly independent consciousness. As he kept scratching his hair and rolling over in pain, he faintly heard the baby voice of the little girl in his ear. "This 6th rank certificate is a reward for making me happy. If you can make it through, you will be truly qualified to replace Beishixin. Just like I was back then." At the same time, Shizao, who arrived at the mausoleum chamber from the left corridor, looked at the magical level refined corpse in front of him who was lying on a pile of bones and eating, swallowed his saliva and said, "Old ghost, is this the refined corpse you are going to find? It looks free, no matter how you look at it. I'm afraid I'll have to give it a snack if I go over there directly." Leafy Ayu's residual soul was silent for a few seconds and sighed. "I didn't expect the old witch to actually release its ban. This is indeed a bit troublesome. Fortunately, we made preparations in advance." Having said this, He actually flew out of Shi Zhao's body and revealed his figure. Although his features were still unclear, his general outline was clearly visible. Then, he bowed to the scroll that Shi Zhao was carrying and said, "Master Chu, please show up." After waiting for a few seconds, the scroll unfolded by itself. The eyes of the graceful girl in the painting turned, and then she stepped out of the painting and turned into an old woman with grey hair. She was Master Chu Yu, who relied on the yin demon invisible body to live in this magical painting. Fei Yu has met Master Chu. The remnant soul of Li Feiyu saluted respectfully. Shi Zhao, who saw this scene, also knelt down hurriedly and paid homage. Although he brought this scroll back from the Holy Spirit sect himself, and he also heard Li Feiyu say that there was a Dongsuan real person hidden in it, this was the first time he saw the other party's true appearance. In the closed world of Wu'ai Dongshan, where the magic power realm is already invincible, the real person has long been a legendary existence. Shi Zhao was more or less excited and felt that he might be the protagonist in the vernacular novel. Otherwise, how come he was the only one who could get the guidance of the remnant soul of the Grand Master, and now he can see the Dongsuan real person? But Chu Yu didn't even look at Shi Zhao. He just said to Li Feiyu, "I owe you a favor for the ancestor of the Li family, and we will be even after this action." Fei Yu understands. "Please cast a spell to help me capture this refined corpse," Li Feiyu's residual soul requested. Chu Yu glanced at the not so intelligent corpse and nodded. "It's called magical power, but there's no one controlling it. It's just a wild beast. It's not difficult to capture it." As she said that, she walked straight towards the corpse, and the aura on his body became more and more terrifying. Shi Zhao just looked at his back and couldn't help trembling. And the corpse just looked up at her, as if struck by lightning, with his head lowered, and he couldn't move at all. This is because the Dongsuan cultivators who have obtained the 4th grade and above talisman already have the fruit position. In Western terms, it is a position. This means that after the cultivator achieves Dongsuan, he is no longer ordinary. Not only has his magic power and lifespan increased, but there is also an inexplicable blessing. The position of the Dongsuan cultivator has absolute suppression on those below the Dongsuan. Even if only the 6th or 7th grade magical powers are used, under the blessing of the position, the 1st or 2nd grade magical powers of the magical cultivators can be easily broken. And the magical powers below the 3rd grade are not even qualified to fight back. They are suppressed by the position and cannot be used at all. Just like the corpse in front of him. Chapter 252. The increasingly hopeless reputation. Outside the Wu'ai Mountain Mausoleum, on the Daofa Peak, the battle between Jiang Yan and Tang Mao has entered the most intense stage. Both sides have used all their means, not only the destructive power on the surface, but also the fate level, and have begun to play a game. 7 stars betray death versus devil impermanence. This is a duel between the top 3 magical powers. In the palace in front of the mausoleum, many masters and magic masters stared at this scene in a daze, and there was silence for a while. The combat power displayed by these two people has far exceeded the scope of master that they can understand. Even the Grand Master Li Feiyu at the time may not have this level. Yi Lingxiao, the Sky Sword, smiled bitterly. "Their battle is beyond my imagination and judgment. It's okay to be an old witch, but where did this Tang Mao come from?" Li Yashi, the leader of the Holy Spirit sect, looked solemn. He glanced at the 2 Dharma kings of the Ming cult and asked with a sneer, "Such strength is probably not something you two can cultivate, right?" In this regard, Yan Zimo and Yan Shan could only remain silent. After all, they didn't know where Tang Mao came from. They only guessed that this female cultivator was probably the person of Zhao Chen, the incarnation of the Star Lord. Seeing that the people of the Ming cult did not answer, Li Yashi turned his eyes to Zhao Chen and asked, "I think Mr. Zhao can give us a satisfactory answer." After seeing Tang Mao, who surrendered to Zhao Chen, show such terrible fighting power, Li Yashi no longer trusted Kang Lin's previous words. Either Kang Lin had been taken down by Zhao Chen and became the other party's servant, or Zhao Chen deceived Kang Lin and made the latter think that he controlled the former. But either way, it means that this Zhao Chen is terrible. His strength may not be strong, but he may have other powerful means to control women. However, Zhao Chen had no time and no mind to deal with the Holy Spirit sect master at this moment. He was calculating how long his balance could last. On the surface, the battle between Tang Mao and Jiang Yan seemed to be a battle of magical powers, but Zhao Chen knew that neither of them could defeat the other in a short time. What they were competing for was whether Zhao Chen's star coins would be exhausted first or Jiang Yan's soul would be exhausted first. After all, although Jiang Yan, who was once the Dangsuan Zenren, was stronger, Tang Mao, as the owner of the Star Chariot, was immortal, and the situation would naturally fall into a stalemate. Just like this, after 5 or 6 seconds, just after Jiang Yan released another Blood Sea Sword key magical power driven by heavenly demon Wuxiang, her breath rapidly declined. In less than a moment, the woman with a head full of silver hair tilted her head and fell asleep. Zhao Chen was quick-witted, and, under the cover of the last Blood Sea Sword key, he recalled the real Tang Mao, and replaced him with the fake Tang Mao transformed by Ma Guangming. As soon as he finished doing this, he saw Qi Meng, wearing the illusory golden crow crown, personally climbed up the Daofa Peak with a flying boat magic weapon, and brought Jiang Yan back. The winner is Tang Mao. The winners of this round are Holy Spirit Li Yushi, Red Blood Shura Zhao Chen, Yinling Saint Kong Lin and Demon Star Tang Mao. Qi Meng quickly announced the result as soon as she settled the Empress Dowager. Her and Zhao Chen's mission has always been to enter the top 3 in the martial arts conference. As long as they achieve this goal, the two of them can return at any time. No matter what happens in the Imperial Mausoleum, or what the Empress Dowager is planning, it has nothing to do with them for the time being. Inside the Imperial Mausoleum, Master Chuyu seemed to have subdued the corpse of the supernatural power realm quite easily, but in fact he only relied on the power of the magic weapon he was in. Magic weapons are equivalent to the Dangsuan realm in status, and basically have the supernatural powers that the Dangsuan master personally displays. But below the master, it is not so easy to exert more than 30% of the power of the magic weapon. Most of the supernatural power cultivators, if their skills, physique, temperament, etc. cannot match the magic weapon, can only use it as a more powerful supernatural weapon. Many prominent families and major sects will deliberately cultivate army masters who meet various conditions of magic weapons or treasure weapons, in order to hold up the facade when their own Dangsuan masters are extinct. However, Chuyu is a former Dangsuan master after all, and her soul has undergone a qualitative change. Even if she has lost her position and most of her strength, she can still mobilize 70% to 80% of the power of the magic weapon. Of course, every time she takes action, it is also a big burden for Chuyu now. Therefore, after leaving a magical power to continue to suppress the corpse, Chuyu's body gradually faded and returned to the scroll. Thank you, Master Chu. After Li Fei's residual soul thanked him again, he was about to cast a spell to erase the intelligence of the corpse and seize control. But just when he was ready and was about to throw himself into the spirit platform of the corpse, a gust of cold wind blew quickly and entered the corpse before him. Soul-eating cold wind? Li Yushi, how dare you? Seeing this, Li Fei was shocked and angry. He didn't care about anything else and quickly escaped into the corpse to snatch control from it. It turned out that, after learning from the Yinling Saint Konglin that Li Fei was possessed by Shiziro and went to the gate of the Holy Spirit sect to retrieve a painting, Li Yushi was concerned about this matter. He originally wanted to use Zhao Chen to clash with Li Fei, but the latter hid himself in the past few days, so he didn't find an opportunity. Until today's battle began, he used the Shadow Split Mind Incarnation method to separate a Shadow Incarnation, and found Shiziro's trace, and then followed him all the way into the Mausoleum. The Shadow Incarnation is different from the Bone Puppet of the Beiyu sect. It is essentially a spell that uses its own shadow as an incarnation. When necessary, it can be transformed from real to virtual, allowing the main body to come with power. This is also the reason why Li Yushi only summoned the Niugui to fight the enemy in the previous 2 battles, because most of his strength was in the shadow at that time. After seeing Li Yushi and Li Fei enter the corpse and fight for it, Shiziro raised his mouth and smiled evilly. He set up the altar around the corpse without hesitation and chanted something. Chuyu in the scroll watched this scene but ignored it. In the palace in front of the Imperial Mausoleum, Qi Meng, who presided over the duel, also drew the list of the final round of duels. Red Blood Shura Zhao Chen vs. Yinling Saint Konglin. Holy Spirit Li Yushi vs. Demon Star Tang Mao. The reason why it was the last round was that this duel only needed to decide the top 3, and there was no need to compete for the first and second place. As the bamboo sticks fell on the table with a snap, the masters and masters of magic power present knew the result, and almost everyone looked at Yinling Saint Konglin. Konglin lived up to everyone's expectations and bowed, saying, "Konglin doesn't dare to compete with the master. I admit defeat." As expected, in the master-servant relationship that the saint had mentioned before, she was the servant. Li Yushi felt the surprised, teasing, or gloating eyes around him, and said in the same voice, "I admit defeat too." Then, he stood up, looked at Zhao Chen with cold eyes, and said word by word, "However, I want to challenge Master Zhao Chen." Chapter 253 Unit 2. In the Imperial Mausoleum, in front of the altar where the 7 stars map was suspended. When the spirit essence of the Empress Dowager Jianyan was exhausted, the 1-year-old, delicate girl showed surprise, and clapped her hands and said, "Among the people fighting this time, there is actually a genuine top-grade supernatural power person. It seems that this is a human calamity of what I have been planning. No, it is not me who is planning, but Jianyan, so she is also a calamity. The spirit essence is exhausted, and it will not be possible to recover in a short time. She can no longer suppress me." After talking to herself incoherently for a while, the girl suddenly laughed foolishly. After a long while, she continued to talk to herself silently. "Kinyao and Chu, you probably thought that I was using this 7 stars map, which was imitated from the Dairi Xingcha map, to locate the outside world and go to Zuanshan through the ritual of fighting. But they don't know that this is just Jianyan's idea, and I, as her other side, am afraid that I will be called a demon or a Taoist evil by Zuanshan. It would be fine if I sneak into Zuanshan, but the positioning of the 7-star map obviously requires the help of the Zhaoqian star map. Isn't this walking into a trap? My cheap daddy said that the barrier covering the entire Dazire is based on the Zhaoqian star map. So, my goal is actually to locate the earth kixing on daddy, and then use the power of the Yangtze Wu crown to travel through the historical fog of the ancient western regions. After all, in ancient times, Dazire didn't have such a complicated defense system. Daddy helped Jianyan separate me and refined me into Jianyan's clone. I wonder if he expected that I would reversely control Jianyan. I guess he did. After all, when I located him, he also located me. But he probably didn't calculate that none of the 3 illusory talismans he provided in the 7-star map were blessed on the people who were connected with his fate. So he can't come back, but I can find him. Daddy, who is in the fog of history, will definitely be scared, right? The girl just thought of this, but found that the screams of the bone scholar had stopped, and the man could no longer be called a human at this moment, but turned into a white bone monster about 5 or 6 feet tall, with blood wrapped all over his body and 9 illusory heads. TSK, the waste is really a waste. He can lose control like this after accepting the 6th grade talisman from the Demon Lord. Fortunately, he still has the inferior immortalization characteristics, and he can be a little restrained against the cultivators below the Dark Zone, so he is still qualified to be a temporary thug. What's more, there is Shizao, that kid. Hey, dare to try a ritual with unclear origins? Does he really think he is the protagonist? It's just a pity for Li Feiyu and Li Yushi. They probably never dreamed that they would be killed by a mana cultivator, right? And Chuyu just started fighting. With her temperament, she won't meddle in other people's business. I'm worthy of being my father's daughter. Even my calculations are as good as his. The girl held her face and was narcissistic for a long time. Then she stretched out her chubby fingers and shook them at the most real of the 9 heads of the monster. She smiled and said, "After the ceremony officially begins, you will guard the entrance of the mausoleum and kill all the invaders." In the palace in front of the Imperial Mausoleum, after Li Yushi, the leader of the Holy Spirit sect, challenged Zhao Chen, he pressed the other party with his momentum and waited for his reply. Speaking of which, the leader Li had actually thought it over carefully before doing this. because after admitting defeats to Tang Mao, if he wanted to enter the top 3 and get the opportunity to become a Grandmaster, there were actually only 2 ways. First, he was competing with the saint of the sect, Konglin, for the 3rd place. But at the moment when most of his strength was still competing with Li Feiyu for the control of the magical corpse refining, Li Yashi didn't think he could beat Konglin. After all, they were from the same school, and the Niugui as a trump card had no advantage over Konglin, and might even be subdued by the other party on the spot. No matter how you think about it, the chances of winning are too low. Second, he was challenging the winner, and he had just admitted defeat to Tang Mao. According to the rule that he could not fight the same person repeatedly, his opponent could only be Red Blood Shura. Although Zhao Chen's origins were mysterious, his methods were also quite strange, especially Yi Shan, Tang Mao, Qin Sheng, and Konglin, 4 powerful female cultivators who successively admitted defeats to him. Konglin even called him master, and the empress seemed to be very fond of him. This made people doubt that the speculation of those casual cultivators might be true. Zhao Chen really had special means to deal with female cultivators. But he was only a cultivator after all. Even if he was as powerful as himself under the blessing of gunfighting technique, he could not be his opponent. After all, Li Yashi was a man, and was not afraid of the strange charm of the other party. Zhao Chen, who did not hear the task completion prompt, knew that this battle was inevitable, so he stood up and said with a smile, "I have long wanted to learn from Master Li's tricks. Please, I will wait for you at the top of the peak first." Li Yashi looked at Zhao Chen with contempt, and then lifted his body with yin wind, and flew to the Daofa peak not far away. He did not really look down on Zhao Chen, but was trying to irritate his opponent. Make the opponent impatient and increase the chances of winning. Zhao Chen didn't care about this at all. He wanted to use the purple light ring to borrow the magical power of Wang Daoyi and transform into a divine wind to fly over. But who knew that the leader of the Blood God sect, Qin Sheng, took the initiative to stand up at this time and said with a smile, "I will take Master Chen to the Daofa peak." Zhao Chen looked at her graceful figure, narrowed his eyes, and then raised the corners of his mouth and said, "Okay." So, in full view of the public, Qin Sheng waved her hand lightly, and the blood color spread, like a sweet rain, condensing in the air. A long red bridge led directly from the palace to the top of the Daofa peak. Qin Sheng held Zhao Chen's hand and strolled on the long bridge, just like a couple enjoying the scenery. This action made everyone on the mountain and down the mountain twitch their lips slightly, especially Li Yashi, who flew over in advance. He felt that the action of provoking Zhao Chen just now had no effect, and he seemed to be provoked in return. At this time, on the blood-colored long bridge, Zhao Chen directly asked with the cover of this spell, "Fei Meng, when did you make Sect Master Qin Sheng your incarnation?" Still the old rules, please call me Shenjia, or Qin Sheng. After saying this sentence, which was equivalent to a disguised admission, the Blood God Sect Master with a charming voice, asked with a smile, "How did you know?" "I have guessed it, since you have not used the magic power, but only used the evil means to fight the enemy, until you took the initiative to admit defeats to me, and looked at me with such misleading eyes. I was roughly sure that you were Fei Meng. You are not reluctant to borrow power from the heaven and earth, but after turning Qin Sheng into an incarnation, you can't borrow it at all, right? Just like Zheng Qingyan has been unable to use the evil dragon's immortal body until now." At this point, Zhao Chen paused and repeated the previous question. "When did you make Sect Master Qin Sheng your incarnation? You didn't really do it just to get Qin Sheng to give me that thank you gift, did you?" Seeing the question, Fei Meng, "No, it was Qin Sheng who covered his mouth and laughed. A long time ago, not long after entering this worry-free cave, I was already the incarnation. It's just that I didn't tell you, because I wanted to hide it from that Master Qinya." Update progress, 45/45. Please vote for the new month. Please recommend. Chapter 254. Nothing wrong. Not long after entering Wu'ai Cave Heaven, you have already become Qin Sheng. No wonder the Blood God sect attacked me with the least force on the way to Beijing. Zhao Chen was surprised and suddenly realized something, blurting out, "What about the purpose of evil god Song Wuyuru and the speculations about the attempts of many real people in the cave heaven?" Qin Sheng understood what he wanted to ask and nodded with a smile. Well, part of it is what Qin Sheng heard from that real person Qin Yap, and part of it is what the Empress herself knows. With so much information combined, it is naturally not difficult to guess. No wonder you always suddenly know, and you are very sure, that Qin Sheng is simply pleasing me. Zhao Chen was speechless for a long time. I really thought your intuition was very accurate. My intuition is indeed very accurate, Qin Sheng replied seriously, and then he couldn't hold it back, covering his mouth and laughing. I was a little worried about how to tell you the information reasonably at the beginning. In the end, even with such an unreliable excuse, you believed it. Isn't it because you said it? Zhao Chen looked at her infinitely beautiful face and had to say that women who were destined to be with Fei Meng were all very beautiful and each had their own merits. This was true for Zheng Qingyuan and also for Qin Sheng at the moment. Qin Sheng, who sensed Zhao Chen's thoughts, also put away his smile and said solemnly, "Thank you very much for your trust." The two looked at each other for a moment and everything was self-evident. But seeing that the long bridge was halfway through, Zhao Chen restrained his thoughts and asked, "I remember you said that the incarnation was born from the obsession of the dead. How did Sect Master Qin Sheng die?" "That's a long story. There is not enough time now. I can only tell you that the Empress and Qin Sheng died together in the Imperial Mausoleum. That was the moment they died. I replaced the identity of the Empress and made Qin Sheng my incarnation. By the way, the Empress was originally just a puppet of the Grand Empress Dowager. It was Qin Sheng who helped her find herself, so they went together to explore the Imperial Mausoleum. And the Grand Empress Dowager's temperament changed drastically after the Empress and Qin Sheng explored the mausoleum. She didn't care about many things and was as willful as a child." Qin Sheng organized his sentences and succinctly recounted some things that had happened before that Zhao Chen didn't know yet. It turns out that the Empress really got out of control with the help of Blood Bodhisattva Qin Sheng. In this way, my previous misleading depiction was not a lie. However, what kind of horror is there in the mausoleum that even a genuine master like Qin Sheng who holds so many trump cards cannot escape? Zhao Chen was puzzled and asked directly, "How did you die?" "I'm not dead. The original Empress and Qin Sheng died," Qin Sheng replied unhappily, and then said solemnly, "I'm actually not so sure. The memories of their deaths are extremely contaminated, and I dare not touch them. But I can be sure that it is related to the illegitimate daughter of the Empress Dowager Jiang Yan and the god of evil Song Wuyuru." "Why do you think so?" Zhao Chen asked puzzled. "Because Qin Sheng's obsession is to get rid of Song Wuyuru's daughter," Qin Sheng said apologetically. "After the mission is completed, we may have to stay in this world for a while and enter the Imperial Mausoleum to see if there is a chance to fulfill this obsession. Of course, if it is too dangerous at that time, we will choose to return immediately. It turns out that after the mission is completed, you can continue to choose to stay." Zhao Chen nodded thoughtfully and said with a smile, "No need to apologize. Actually, I also want to go into the Imperial Mausoleum to take a look. After all, the Yangxiu Golden Crow crown is also in it. Even if we can't get it this time, we have to step on it carefully first." The two of them were chatting and laughing, strolling on the long bridge, but the audience at the foot of Wu'ai Mountain were extremely unhappy to see this scene. "This is a competition of fighting. Can you be more serious? I don't know how many people are heartbroken and wish they could take their place. The most angry person is undoubtedly the other protagonist of the competition, the leader of the Holy Spirit sect, Li Yushi." He thought he was well mannered, but after seeing Zhao Chen and Qin Sheng rubbing their ears and cheeks and loving each other, he was still so angry that he raised his eyebrows. Isn't this too much of a disregard for him? Fortunately, before his patience was exhausted, Zhao Chen and Qin Sheng finally walked across the blood-colored long bridge and came to the fighting peak. Qin Sheng first saluted Li Yushi, then waved to Zhao Chen, and flew back to the main peak palace by himself. Seeing this scene, many spectators at the foot of the mountain all breathed a sigh of relief, and they were all excited in their hearts. Finally, we will see Zhao Chen's skills. Whether he really has powerful means, or will be exposed, it all depends on this one. On the Daofa peak, Li Yushi looked at the handsome boy in front of him coldly, and without much nonsense, he directly spit out a large amount of yin qi from his mouth, which gathered into a huge monster with a bull's head and a human body. Bull Ghost. As soon as this ghost with magical powers appeared, a pair of eyes that were several times larger than the millstone stared at Zhao Chen, as if he was some kind of delicacy. Zhao Chen, who possessed the 5 immortal spiritual key, also had a great attraction to monsters, but this kind of attraction was not a positive effect. The bull ghost, which was half the size of a mountain, raised its big hand formed by yin key, and grabbed Zhao Chen like the previous 2 times. Seeing this, Zhao Chen calmly threw out a rope with a golden surface, but a dark interior. The rope grew longer in the wind, and in a flash it climbed up the body of the cow ghost, and tied it up tightly. This was the demon binding rope, one of the gangsha magic weapons Zhao Chen got in Yunlu Villa. It was very effective in binding and capturing large demons and evil creatures. However, seeing this, Li Yashi said disdainfully, "A gangsha magic weapon theirs, to act so presumptuously in front of a magical ghost." Before he finished speaking, a black light burst out from the body of the bull ghost, and the golden rope that bound it quickly dimmed, as if it had lost all its spiritual energy. This is the 5th grade magical power Yin Demon Devouring Yuan, and it is also the only magical power that the bull ghost possesses. It can absorb all the vitality in the world, including the spirit of the cultivator. But even the Yinling Saint is Zhao Chen's person. How could he not know the details of the bull ghost? The reason why he still chose to use the demon binding rope is because it is just a means for Zhao Chen to deceive people. His real purpose is to seize control of this magical ghost. As for how to seize it, that's very simple, because the yin wind transformed by the Yinling Saint Konglin is now entangled in the demon binding rope. Since the bull ghost can be used as a summoned creature and counted as Li Yushi's combat power, then the Yinling Saint Konglin can naturally be counted as Zhao Chen's means. This is fair and not against the rules. The empress sitting in the main seat of the palace said so. Qinsheng, Tang Mao, Yi Shan and other masters who could see through Zhao Chen's tricks nodded. There is nothing wrong with this. Something happened suddenly, which made me a little late. Chapter 255 Top 3 Achievement. Since Zhao Chen's method of covering up Konglin with the demon binding rope was relatively concealed, the cultivators below the Grandmaster level would not be able to see too many clues if they did not investigate carefully. And the Grandmasters, when Bei Shixian left, and Jiang Yan fell asleep, Qinsheng, Tang Mao, Yi Shan, Yi Lingxiao, Yan Shun, and Yun Zimo were all their people, so they naturally saw through it, but did not say it. What's more, Konglin was originally Zhao Chen's property, and her action did not violate the rules of fighting. Of course, Li Yashi, the leader of the Holy Spirit sect, did not think so. He had never expected Zhao Chen to be so despicable. When he realized that his Niugui had been usurped by Konglin's secret method, it was already a little too late. Zhao Chen, Konglin, you. Li Yashi was shocked and angry, and was about to expose the despicable behavior of the two of them, but before he could finish his words, he was grabbed by the Niugui's backhand. After all, most of his strength and energy are now in the tomb of the mausoleum, fighting with Li Feiyu for control of the corpse. Apart from this cow ghost, he may not be much stronger than Zhao Chen, and naturally he is not Konglin's opponent, and he can't withstand the attack of the magical ghost. And Zhao Chen will not give Li Yashi a chance to continue speaking. After just releasing the demon binding rope, he began to calmly prepare the spell Mysterious Gun taught by Yan San. At this time, he has merged many fire guns into a sniper rifle. Bang! With a dull gunshot, Li Yashi's head shattered, and his essence was completely absorbed by the cow ghost. Unfortunately, the shadow split mind incarnation method can transform between the main body and the shadow of the body at will, and the one who was shot dead now is definitely not Li Yashi's real body. But even so, the fact that Li Yashi was defeated in just 20 breaths still shocked everyone watching the battle at the foot of the mountain. Is this Zhao Chen's true strength? That fire gun is so powerful? No wonder the fairies dare not compete with Zhao Chen, and even worship him as their master. It seems that they are conquered by his force, not by his special skills. The key is not the fire gun at all, okay? It was the ghosts and spirits controlled by Sect Leader Li that rebelled on the spot, which led to his quick defeat. Maybe this is the most terrifying thing about Zhao Chen. You mean that the bull ghost is also female? It doesn't seem right. Sect Leader Li finally called out the names of Zhao Chen and Saint Kang. I guess it was Saint Khan who told Zhao Chen the weaknesses and details of the bull ghost, which led to the ghost's rebellion on the spot. Makes sense. But if this is true, then sect leader Li is too wronged, isn't he? His real body doesn't seem to be here. He only sent his clone to participate in the battle. He is so arrogant. There is nothing wrong with him. Just when many cultivators were talking about it, Yinling Saint Girl Kanlin appeared above the fighting peak at some point and waved her hand to take back the bull ghost. Then, she walked directly to Zhao Chen, stretched out her arms to wrap around his waist, and then flew up with the Yinfeng, but she didn't even look at the headless body that was sucked into a mummy by the Niugui. Seeing this scene, many people were stunned and couldn't help but complain. Speaking of which, the Yinling Saint recognized Zhao Chen as the master. The leader of the Blood God sect had an ambiguous relationship with Zhao Chen, plus the Empress and the two sects, and one sect, that were originally friendly to Zhao Chen. Except for the White Jade sect, can Zhao Chen be considered to have unified the world? Zhao Chen has no idea whether he has unified this cave heaven or not. What he wants to know now is why he has entered the top 3, but the task has not been completed. In the Li family Imperial Mausoleum, in front of the altar where the 7-star map is suspended, when Zhao Chen shot and killed Li Yushi's clone, the delicate girl also quickly got up from the ground after a moment of stunned. The top 3 have come out, but Zhao Chen seems to have cheated. Why did the Star God trial ceremony still succeed? I don't understand. Forget it. Since the ceremony is fine, I should complete the last step and go visit daddy. Thinking of this, the little girl pointed to the 7-star map, and 3 rays of starlight flew out from it and sank into the void. Then, she looked in the direction of the tomb, smiled and said to herself, Shizao's preparation should be completed, right? I hope he can buy enough time for me. Although Jiang Yan helped to ward off the disaster, I have a feeling that my plan will not go smoothly. I can sense Dada's breath. At this point, she hummed an unknown little tune, turned into a black light, and merged into the 7-star map. In the Imperial tomb, after Shizao set up the altar, he circled around the refined corpse while chanting, in the dark, heaven and earth are born together. When they are scattered, they become gas, and when they are gathered, they become form. Bindle the 7 spirits on the right, and the 3 souls on the left, so that my spirit and body will always exist. Capture. After he finished reciting the divine spell to control corpses in the netherworld which he obtained by chance, he felt that his whole body was soaked with sweat, and his magic power was seriously overdrawn, which hurt his foundation. In fact, when he was halfway through reciting, Shizao had already found something wrong and wanted to stop, but he was horrified to find that his body was out of control, as if another soul had lived in it. At this moment, with the word capture uttered, the refined corpse that was originally sealed by Master Chu stood up again and directly released a magic fire, igniting Li Fiao and Li Yashi who were fighting for control in his body. Screams rang out immediately, and Li Fiao and Li Yashi also found something wrong at this time, but they were entangled together and could not get away for a while, so they missed the last chance to escape. Soon, the two found that the magic fire was burning more and more vigorously, and it was also mixed with the breath of Golden Crow, so that their many magical powers could not play the desired effect. Oh no, this is a trap. Li Yashi had already reacted at this time and said angrily. In normal times, he would have transferred his magic power to other shadow clones through the air and abandoned his current body. But the magic fire seemed to have the characteristic of blocking the cause and effect connection, so that his several attempts ended in failure. Li Fiao, who was still fighting with him, was silent for a while and said in a lost voice, "This is the yin-yang magic fire. It wants to refine us into its corpse pill." When did it know this? Li Fiao himself is a great master of refining equipment, and he is no stranger to various magic fires. He quickly recognized the means of refining this corpse. Corpse pill? Damn it. Once the corpse pill is made, it is no longer at all but a real evil spirit. Isn't it sealed by Master Chu? I'm afraid something went wrong outside. Could it be that Shizao is helping this corpse to refine us? Just as the two were struggling desperately in panic, they didn't know that Shizao was at the end of his life. He only felt that his flesh, blood, bones, magic power, and soul were all moving away from him and heading towards the refined corpse. But he could do nothing about it. Chu. Master Chu, save me. Please, save me. Just when he was in despair, a sigh came from his ears. Hey. Then, Zhao rolled his eyes and fainted completely. Chapter 256 Mission completed. Before Zhao completely passed out, he seemed to see a beautiful figure staining his clothes red. As Zhao lost consciousness, the seal on the corpse reappeared. Although the yin-yang magic fire was still not extinguished, it was not as blazing as before, giving the remaining souls of Iyashi and Li Fiao a chance to catch their breath temporarily. At this time, the scroll on Zhao's back unfolded again. This time, the real Chuyu who was in the painting did not walk out, but directly said, Kinya, your condition is even worse than mine, so why wade into this muddy water? What it is planning is not bad for us. Hearing this, a female phantom wearing a blood-stained dress and long black hair appeared above Zhao's head. She glanced at the scroll and said expressionlessly, although I'm lingering in this appearance, I still insist on calling myself a human, and will never associate with evil spirits and sit back and watch its conspiracy succeed, even if this conspiracy is beneficial to us. Chuyu was stunned at first, then burst into laughter. If she hadn't had a body, she would have pounded the ground with her hands. Hahaha, I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect that you, who was the first to stop being a "human," are still abiding by the teachings of Master Moyan. This is really the funniest joke in the world. In terms of the number of killings alone, the demons can hardly compare to you, right? I kill people for the purpose of practicing and continuing myself, which is fundamentally different from the demons, who want to completely drag Zhao Chen into the abyss and pollute everything. Kinya snorted, then said, although the demon intends to connect the fog at the entrance of the cave with a historical fog of a certain period in ancient times, it will not harm us, and we can even use it to go to Zhao Chen in ancient times. But can you guarantee that its calculations will not harm Zhao Chen? Will it be the hidden hands of those outside who are invading Zhao Chen? If we are convicted of crimes by heaven and earth by then, with our remaining destiny, I'm afraid we will perish directly. What's more, we don't have the favor of the star gods and the 5 and 8 ones. Everything in the fog of history is false. We will only sink into it and can't do anything. Hearing this, Master Chuyu was silent for a long time, and then sighed. You are right. If the great demon Lord Teishi was still here, we might still be able to make a difference in history, but now we can only sink into it. As she spoke, she transformed into an old woman and walked out of the scroll. While strengthening the seal on the corpse, she turned her head and sneered. However, from what I know about you, if there were no better options, you would never care about such a thankless task. After all, you and I are both lingering on. Even if Wu Yaodangshan is guilty of Zhao Chen, we will only die a few days earlier. Are you betting on that Zhao Chen? Even if his 5 immortal spiritual true key gets the Teichu true meaning, you wouldn't be so desperate, right? Does he have any other special identity? Kinya nodded slightly and said, then Zhao Chen is the descendant of Master Moyan and Emperor Song. Oh, what's so special about this? Isn't the evil god Song Wuyuru the descendant too? Otherwise, why would we agree when Jiang Yang gave him those things of Zhao Song? Chuyu frowned and said dissatisfiedly, what did you find out? Don't use these words to evade me. I can't tell you specifically. I can only tell you that there is a mark left by a Taoist master on his body. Kinya said in a secretive manner. You can also find the mark of a Taoist master, unless. Chuyu was shocked when he said this and looked at Kinya with an unbelievable look. Kinya nodded slightly. The two were silent for a few seconds and tacitly changed the subject. Chuyu withdrew his hand that was reinforcing the seal and asked casually, in Daksha, the remnants of our 4 major demon sects have probably long since become the same as demons. Can we be protected by relying on this young Master Zhao? If the sects and families in Daksha really want to kill us all, Wu'ai Cave Heaven will not be able to protect us. It was because Patriarch Moyan took that step and touched the interests of that person that brought about his own death. And the encirclement and suppression of us by Daksha was more to save that person's face. Of course, our demon sect's extreme actions did indeed anger the public. Kenya had now completely cut off the connection between Zhao and the altar he had set up, and continued, but the situation is different now. According to the information my Shenja has found out, many cultivators on Zhao Chen's side know 1 or 2 demon sect spells. As long as they don't violate Daksha's laws, no one will care. Chuyu nodded thoughtfully, then pointed to Li Fiao and Li Yashi who were still trapped by the yin-yang demon fire in the corpse refining platform, and asked, what should we do with them? As for Zhao, his essence was completely drained, and he was lucky to be able to save his life. In the future, he can only be a useless person. Ever since Sima Zhao and Jiang Yan stabbed the 2 old ghosts of the Li family, the Li family has really been getting worse and worse. Kenya shook her head and continued, but after all, they are the descendants of old friends, and we will keep their lives. Just let them sign a contract and surrender. Chuyu glanced at the 2 people in the corpse and said directly, give me Li Fiao, and you can take the corpse and Li Yashi. No problem. Kenya agreed happily. The 2 had just decided how to divide the spoils, when they suddenly realized something. They looked to the right at the same time, and said in unison, it's about to begin. After that, they quickly packed up the spoils, and fled to where the girl was. In the palace in front of the Wu'ai Mountain Imperial Mausoleum, as the Empress announced the top 3 names of this battle, 3 stars descended from the air, and landed on Zhao Chen, Kang Lin and Tang Mao. They were the 3 illusory 5th grade talismans contained in the 7-star map. Although this position is not real, it does not have the ability to transform the body and soul, and it does not really grant the cultivator the authority to glimpse the laws of heaven and earth, but it can indeed allow Zhao Chen to feel the unique state of supernatural powers and even temporarily upgrade a certain spell he specifies to the level of a 9th grade supernatural power. These benefits are nothing to Zhao Chen. After all, he has the purple light ring, and can enjoy similar treatment at any time. But for Tang Mao, or Ma Guangming, it is an extremely precious experience. This is a great opportunity to glimpse the secret of supernatural powers and more easily get the opportunity to grant the position of heaven and earth. Now it seems that the reason why the purple light ring can borrow the power of the cultivators is actually to temporarily move the spell position of others to myself, right? And these spell positions of others are naturally stained with the spirit of their owners. So after using them for a long time, my own temperament will be shifted. I have been more compassionate recently, and more nosy than before. It is probably because of the influence of Wang Daoyi. As for the popularity with women, maybe it's Sister Hanksha's fault. He just thought of this when he heard the voice without any fluctuations. The first stage of the mission is completed. You can stay in Wu'ai Arcade for half an hour and return at any time during this period. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257, Entering the Mausoleum. Hearing this voice, Zhao Chen finally felt at ease, since he can return at any time. No matter what danger he encounters next, he will at least have a way out. At this time, the Grand Empress Dowager Jiang Yan, who had been in a coma since the duel with Tang Mao, suddenly opened her eyes. She covered her head in pain, as if suppressing some terrifying thing that was about to erupt, and said with great difficulty, "Hurry, kill me quickly. It may be too late." But before she finished her words, her face showed anxiety again, and she suddenly changed her words. "No, don't listen to her. After killing me, I will immediately transform into a complete Daoni." Her voice was hurried, and there was a bit of fear hidden in it. "Don't hesitate, kill me quickly." The previous consciousness controlled the body again and said, "No, no one can survive if you kill me." The consciousness behind immediately refuted. Just like that, the Empress Dowager with long silver hair casually scattered on her chest actually quarreled with herself. Sometimes she asked people to kill her, and sometimes she asked not to kill her, as if she was crazy. No, maybe she is really crazy. The great terror in the mausoleum that Fei Meng mentioned comes from the part of her that has gone crazy, right? Jiang Yan's crazy overdraft of his soul essence in the battle before was probably an action done under the leadership of the crazy part, with the purpose of making the normal part fall into a weak state, be completely assimilated by it, and completely turned into Tao evil. This shows that Jiang Yan had already fallen into a disadvantage before the fight. Combined with what Fei Meng said, the Empress Dowager's temperament changed a lot after her arrival. Perhaps it was the original Qinsheng and the Empress who touched some taboo when exploring the Imperial Mausoleum. Not only did they die, but they also caused Jiang Yan to become what he is now. When Zhao Chen was thinking divergently, the other masters were also unable to make a decision in the face of the scene in front of them, and all cast their eyes on the Empress. Qi Meng smiled coldly, then took out the famous gun Superhuman without hesitation, and pulled the trigger, shooting a bullet with a golden glow at Jiang Yan's head. Jiang Yan obviously did not expect the Empress to act so decisively. She had no time to react to such a close-range shooting, so her head shattered, and her body and most of her blood were burned by the sunfire contained in the bullet in an instant. Most of the techniques for making special bullets are included in the gunfighting technique, but the materials required are different. Zhao Chen's several nights in the palace were not just to exchange information with Qi Meng, but also to take the opportunity to use the many precious materials collected by the Dalian dynasty to create a lot of similar special bullets. Although this attack came without warning and caught Jiang Yan off guard, she was a former Dangsa and real person after all. Even though she only had the cultivation level of Gangsha at this moment, she still managed to let a drop of blood escape the burning range of the sunfire at the last moment, and condensed her body again with the blood drop rebirth method from the 9 transformations of the blood demon. At this time, she was naked, and her breath was so weak that she couldn't even maintain her magic power. She said in a rather exasperated manner, "You actually believe her and not me?" Qi Meng just smiled contemptuously and said, if the Imperial Grandmother really still had the ability to control her body, she wouldn't have exhausted her soul and spirit just now. There is no such thing as two consciousnesses fighting, it's just that you, the evil obstacle, are just playing tricks and delaying time. Jiang Yan's face changed when he heard this, and just when he was about to say something else, a long sword emitting a blazing white light pierced from her back, and the tip of the sword passed through her chest and stood between her plumpness. The next moment, a dazzling sun-like light suddenly burst out, directly engulfing Jiang Yan's entire body. This is the great sun sword of evil slaying imitated by the ancient sword Zhuz. Before Qi Meng suddenly attacked, and the others could not react, Zhao Chen had already retracted his thoughts and tacitly entered the invisible state with the toad-light ribbon, waiting for the opportunity to finish off the knife. Only in this way can the Daozi body be completely annihilated in one blow, preventing it from transmitting more power. It was not until Jiang Yan was completely reduced to ashes that the other masters and mana cultivators, except Tang Miao and Qinsheng, woke up from their dreams and could not believe the results they saw. Jiang Yan, who was so powerful that he could beat the leader of the White Jade sect, died so easily? What they did not know was that Jiang Yan, who had exhausted his essence, was actually not as good as an ordinary Gangsha cultivator, and it was normal for Zhao Chen and Qi Meng to jointly wipe him out. What's more, the two of them were sneak attacks. Of course, everyone who stayed in the palace at this moment was their people. Seeing Zhao Chen and the Empress with such strength would only make them feel relieved and happy. Qi Meng looked around and said directly, as you can see, the royal grandmother has been controlled by the evil spirit. I'm afraid that a big change will happen in the Imperial Mausoleum soon. I would like to invite you to enter the mausoleum and stop the evil spirit's conspiracy together. As soon as she finished speaking, the hot-blooded Tingchao sword Ling Lu passed by his master Bibo Fairy and took the lead to respond. Where justice lies, I will be the sword of your majesty. While speaking, his eyes were as fiery as fire when he looked at the Empress. However, his statement did not immediately receive a response from others. The scene was quiet for a while, and it was a bit awkward. Seeing this, his master Bibo Fairy Yishan glanced at this ignorant disciple, and after a little thought, he nodded and said, I'm willing to serve your majesty. With the lead of this left-handed master, King Shan Sword Yi Lingxiu also clasped his fists and said, Yi is just at your command. the two guardians of the demon sect, Yanshan and Yunzimo, the saint of the Holy Spirit sect, Konglin, and the leader of the Blood God sect, Qinsheng, all looked at Zhao Chen, waiting for his reply. It's already this time, and he's still trying to create a character. Zhao Chen glanced at Qinsheng, who was looking at him with a smile, and coughed. Cough. The Empress's orders are my orders. As his voice fell, this team composed of many masters and magic masters was also established. After the Empress opened the gate of the mausoleum, they entered the passage of the Imperial Mausoleum together. But before they had walked for long, a white skeletal monster about 5 or 6 feet tall, with blood wrapped all over its body and 9 illusory heads blocked their way. Deep in the mausoleum, the altar where the 7-star map was suspended, was now filled with mist, and the phantoms of the sky full of stars were faintly revealed. The light projected by those stars focused on the 7-star map, as if a bridge built of starlight had been built. Just as the bridge turned from virtual to real, and became clearer and clearer, the delicate little girl suddenly showed her little head from the 7-star map, and said to Shizao, who was walking slowly with a scroll on his back not far away, "Chuyu, do you really want to go against me?" Chapter 258 The Demon King's Body. The scroll unfolded, and Chuyu, who looked like an old woman, walked out of it. She looked at the altar under the 7-star map, and said in a cold tone, "I was originally just moved by Kinya's words. But now, I have to stop you, otherwise the creatures in Wuiao Cave Heaven will probably die. You actually established a connection with those things outside Zhuanshan. You plan to enter the ancient historical mist. Is it also their instruction?" Hearing this, the girl suddenly laughed, and her originally silver bell-like voice became very strange. "Things outside? Can Taishi Demon Lord be considered something outside? I just want to return to the origin and respect the orthodoxy of the heavenly demon." Humph. Master Moyan said that the thing is no longer the demon lord, but just the remaining polluted spirit of him. "I understand. He wants to use your connection with Song Weiru to smuggle into the historical mist, to tamper with part of history, right? Want to turn the entire cave heaven into a source of pollution, and send it into ancient times. It's really a big deal." True Manchuyu snorted coldly. "Even if you guessed everything, what can you do?" The girl held her face and grinned. "The ceremony has already started. Can you still stop me? With this painting at the level of an illusion magic weapon, and you who have declined to the point that you can't even maintain your physical form for long? I'd like to give it a try." After Chuyu finished speaking, he stretched out his hand and pointed forward. A ray of clear light that had been ready to go in the scroll behind him shot out, and turned into a halo, covering the girl's body. This is the first-class great magical power of the Zikithang lineage among the 9 veins of Kunlun, the Demon King body binding. This ray of clear light is unaffected by all kinds of magic, and cannot be broken by anything. Once the opponent is completely bound, no matter how amazing your magical powers are, you can do nothing about it, and can only be sealed. It is the world's #1 sealing method. It is rumored that a cultivator with magical powers successfully sealed a Demon King level evil spirit with this magical power after paying the price of his life, so it was named Demon King Body Binding. The girl obviously did not expect Chuyu to be able to use the magical power passed down by Taichu Daojin. She was careless for a moment and was entangled by the clear light. When she saw that she was about to be completely sealed, she gritted her teeth, then sprayed a mouthful of blood on her chubby little hand, and then swung it forward fiercely. In an instant, the densely entangled light retreated, leaving a gap. The girl seized the opportunity and drove the 7 stars map out of the gap. Time flows back briefly. The great magical power of Devil Cloud Cosmic Light. Chuyu's heart sank when he saw this, and he also exhaled a breath of Yunqi, allowing the clear light transformed by the Demon King's body constrained to catch up with the girl again. However, this time, the girl who was on guard directly split into multiple cells, each of which was exactly the same as her original body, causing the clear light to lose its target for a while. Seeing this, Chuyu, who was already in poor condition, had to choose to retract his magical powers and retain his strength, and the girl did not take advantage of the situation to pursue. Chuyu's condition was indeed not good, but she was also seriously deficient after forcibly using the Demon Cloud Cosmic Light. After all, they are not normal Danksuan real people, and no one is much better than the other. I remember that the husband of true Lord Moyan, the Tezu of Zhao Song, practiced the Dangyuan Huaying Shengshai and Shengshen's Hang of the Zikathang lineage in the Teichujiushenshai and Shengshin Iltang. The fundamental magical power of this divine chapter, demon king body binding, is said to be able to subdue all the demons in the heavens, so even true Lord Moyan bowed down in respect, and obeyed in his words to Emperor Tezu of Zhao Song. Today's sight is indeed extraordinary. If it weren't for the magical power of demon cloud cosmic light created by true Lord Moyan, after he took that step, I'm afraid it would be difficult for me to see my father. The little girl continued to exert her strength secretly as she continued. However, I didn't know that the portrait you inhabited could actually use the magical power of Taoist Teichu. It must be a relic from Emperor Tezu of Zhao Song, right? I understand. You said that you were able to survive by inhabiting the magic weapon Yin demon invisible body, but that was actually a lie. In fact, you were voluntarily bound by the demon king body binding and used the seal to preserve your own vitality, right? Hearing this, Chuyu did not refute, but stared at the girl and sighed. It's a pity that the talisman you can display is higher than mine, otherwise even Demon Cloud Cosmic Light would find it difficult to shake the Demon King's body binding. Not necessarily. After all, true Lord Demon Cloud had already taken that step and was about to return to the arms of the Demon Lord, but was stopped by that person. The girl responded with a smile and did not seem to be in a hurry to take action. Simply speaking of the attainments of the time and space magical power, I'm afraid that only the first grade great magical power star constellation stopping of the Kunlun Jade lineage can rival the Demon Cloud Cosmic Light. Star constellation stopping is the first of the Zuanshan formation magical powers, which can suppress all changes in time and space. At the entrance of the Imperial Mausoleum, Zhao Chen and others looked at the white bone monster with 9 illusory heads wrapped in blood blocking the front, and their hearts could not help but become dignified. This seems to be the white bone scholar Yan Yua of the White Jade Sect. A disciple of the Holy Spirit Sect pointed at the clearest of the 9 heads of the monster and screamed. Zhao Chen also looked at that face. At this time, although the other party's face was still pale, the flesh was wriggling, and a long bony horn grew on his forehead. On his cheeks, white bones were constantly drilling in and out like little bugs. Just one look and Zhao Chen felt a splitting headache. Is this a partial inferior state of immortalization? How could he become like this? Was he influenced by a higher level person? Or did he lose control when he advanced? One thought after another flashed through Zhao Chen's mind. Then, scenes of illusions appeared in front of his eyes again, making him lose his mind for a moment. In that illusion, he seemed to have turned into a white bone scholar, who defeated Bei Shixing, the leader of the White Jade Sect, and reversely refined him into a clone, then destroyed the royal family and the 3 major sects, unified the world, and took the Empress, the Yinling Saint, the Blood God Sect leader, the Bibo Fairy and other beauties into the harem, playing all day long. This should be the delusion of the white bone scholar, before he turned into a monster. Zhao Chen watched this scene calmly, and woke up all of a sudden. If it were someone else, they might have sunk into it under the influence of this inferior immortalization feature, but Zhao Chen would not. First of all, his 5 immortal spiritual ki was resistant to similar influences. Secondly, his escort position was also equipped with a spell such as Eye of the Void that could help him see through the illusion. Thirdly, and most importantly, that was not enough temptation. After all, with the current situation in the cave, is it really that difficult to kill Bei Shixing and unify the world? Even if it is to have fun day and night in the future, as long as Zhao Chen wants, it is not impossible. How can something that can be done with just a little time and effort possibly tempt Zhao Chen? Evil creature. Seeing that everyone else was stunned the moment they saw the clear face of the monster, as if they were also trapped in some kind of illusion and unable to extricate themselves, while the monster waved the white bones on its claws to hit the few people in front of it. Zhao Chen immediately shouted, and the ancient sword Zhuz in his hand turned into a flaming bird in the void and slammed into the monster's head with a clear face. This is a Chiwuzi sword key, one of the Yangang spells in the Sun Sword Sutra. With Zhao Chen's strength at the refining orifice level, it was not so easy to use this spell. but with the blessing of the false 5th grade talisman position rewarded to the top 3 in the fight, it turned decay into magic, allowing him to use the power of the ancient sword Zhuz to show the power of the Gangsha spell. If Zhao Chen is promoted to magic power in the future, the power of this move can even be increased to a level close to the 9th grade magical power with the blessing of the false talisman position. Boom. As the monster's head was chopped off by Zhao Chen's sword, everyone, including Qi Meng, trembled all over, as if they had woken up from a nightmare. Chapter 259. Stop. Qi Meng's cheeks flushed slightly, but after waking up, she immediately responded and used Silver Moon to attack the monster that became more and more crazy because of the explosion of its head. The other masters were similar. Although their spirits were more or less damaged, they were still within the range they could bear. Most of them endured the discomfort and launched a counterattack. But the mana disciples of various sects were different. Those with strong wills and strong souls were fine, but they just felt dizzy and had a lot of tears in their eyes. As for some mana monks, who were already unstable or had major flaws in their hearts, some of them still looked stagnant and obsessed, and some even had bloodshot eyes and became picky. What's more, the flesh has begun to slowly disintegrate. Ah! A scream came. It came from several mana disciples of Beiyu sect who had not left with Beishixin before. Originally, these people were determined and would not be hurt, even if they looked directly at such inferior immortal bodies. They were only slightly injured. However, the Bone Scholar was born in the White Jade sect. The immortal characteristics it showed had a special attack on these White Jade sect disciples who practiced the same technique, which increased the alienation effect on them several times. Bang! The eyeballs of several magic disciples exploded in their eye sockets, and blood and flesh splattered, leaving only black blood holes, which looked extremely terrifying. Not only that, while they were wailing, their bodies also changed, combining into a monster made of bones. As soon as this monster was formed, it attacked the magic monks of other sects around it, and the scene suddenly became chaotic. Fortunately, at this time, the Bone Scholar, as the source of pollution, had been scattered into countless pieces under the combined attack of the master's life spells. After all, without the immortal feature, it is just a mana realm that has lost control of the 6th grade position. No matter how ferocious it looks, it will not be a match for so many masters. Finally, Yanshan released another fire of light to purify it thoroughly. It must be said that the Ming cult is still professional in removing pollution. At the same time, as the monster transformed by the Bone Scholar was purified, the thing transformed by the Beiyu sect disciple also lost all vitality and turned back into ordinary bones. But even so, the disciples of each sect also suffered considerable losses, and most of their spirits were seriously traumatized and basically lost their combat capabilities. Just after reaching the entrance, most of the members were reduced. I don't know what dangers will be encountered later. Fortunately, the high-end combat power is still relatively intact. Zhao Chen frowned slightly, exchanged a look with Qi Meng, and decided to let the mana monks stay here first, and only let the masters and the two of them continue to move forward. After all, the mana monks in this cave world cannot refine Gangjusha, and their resistance to pollution is much worse, and they may become enemies at any time. As for Zhao Chen's decision, the other masters had no objection. After a simple adjustment, they continued to walk deeper into the mausoleum. In the deepest part of the Imperial Mausoleum, on the other side of Wu'ai Mountain shrouded in mist, in a huge pit, countless grievances gathered here, so thick that they even formed a viscous liquid, rippling slightly in the pit, like a pool of water. At the bottom of this pool of resentment, a little light flashed. It was a hollow golden crown with a golden crow bird on top. At this time, the resentment was like a tide, constantly eroding the light emitted by the golden crown. Although it was slow, it was extremely determined to pollute it. Zenran Kinya, who came to the resentment pool by the corpse, looked at the scene in front of her. Her already pale face became even uglier, and she muttered to herself silently. The old witch actually gathered the resentment of those who were executed for atonement over the years, intending to forcibly suppress the star god's relics, guide the power of a certain great evil or even supreme level evil outside to come, forcibly transform the environment of the cave, and pollute all living things. From this point of view, it may not be a coincidence that Yungu, Zhengzhao, Sima Zhao and others can obtain the refining method of the Yunxiao crown. Those Yunxiao crowns that went to Zhuanshan are simply to provide the great evil or supreme with the positioning of the worry-free cave. In addition, the development and growth of the Ming cult and the doubts of the two left-wing factions about the Redemption Sun system are also 80% driven by her. After all, every time the Ming cult Dharma King uses his divine power, he consumes the power of the Star God's relic, and only when the sinner himself doubts the legitimacy of being killed will the resentment be exacerbated. By the way, I heard that the sister of that man named Lulinqi is the leader of this generation of the Ming cult, that is, the reincarnation of the true spirit of the Yunxiao Golden Crow Crown. If even she is executed as the sinner, then this resentment may really suppress the Star God's relic. Fortunately, he was stopped by that young master Zhao Chen, or rather, he appeared here at this juncture with a mission. Finally, the old witch is not good at weaving such a delicate fate. Is it the evil god who helped? It is worthy of being Yanwanhe, Filio Kangsheng. The power of the first grade great supernatural power is amazing. Thinking of this, she glanced at Li Yashi, who had won the body of the supernatural power corpse refiner as she wished, and said lightly, all these grudges are awarded to you. They can help your corpse refiner reach a higher level. Of course, you are also likely to turn into a demon. But it is better for you to become a monster than for the whole cave to be destroyed. This is the purpose of her bringing Li Yashi and the corpse refiner here. Li Yashi was overjoyed when he heard this. His Holy Spirit sect lineage is best at refining grudges for their own use, especially the contracted corpse refiners and ghosts, and the resentment is a tonic thing. And the quality of the pool of resentment in front of him is the highest he has ever seen in his life. He was itching to see it just now, but he didn't expect that Master Qin would actually give it to him. At this moment, Li Yashi felt that it was not bad to sign a contract to sell himself, since he was forced to surrender to the other party. What's more, when I absorb all the water in the pool, my strength will definitely increase greatly. By then, there is no way to solve the contract. While Li Yashi was thinking secretly, he thanked the real person for his generosity sincerely on the surface. Qin Yap, the real person, knew his thoughts very well. She just sneered in her heart and let the other party jump into the pool. On the altar where the 7-star map was floating, the girl who was confronting Chuyu was still delaying time, but her face suddenly changed, and her voice turned cold. I was wondering why you are so calm. It turns out that Kenya took people to the pool of resentment. Chuyu, who looked like an old woman, sighed, and the clear light in her hand reappeared. Give up. I won't let you go there. Once the accumulated resentment is exhausted, the existence outside cannot descend with power. Even if you successfully connect the cave to the ancient times, your plan cannot be completed. No. Without serious pollution, I'm afraid you can't connect to the ancient historical fog. The girl was silent for a few seconds after hearing this, and then burst into laughter. After laughing for a long time, she said, are you so sure that I have no backup plan? Chapter 260 Transaction. Just after Li Yashi drove the corpse into the pool of resentment, the resentment in the pool suddenly rolled violently, and countless negative energies suddenly emerged, gathering into two illusory figures. Li Yuanliang, Li Ziasheng, it is indeed you two. I didn't expect the old witch to be so ruthless. Not only did she kill you together with Sima Zhao, she also enslaved your souls to guard this pool of resentment. Oh, that's right. You are no longer the same as before, but just monsters without reason. Master Kenya glanced at the two figures in front of her. One of them was wearing a tattered and filthy black armor with a big hole on his chest. Inside, heavy iron chains bound something, emitting red light. The other demon shadow had 3 heads and 6 arms, holding a large flag, emitting endless blue clouds. They were exactly the two masters that the royal Li family once had, but when they were trying to snatch the Yunxiao crown refined by Sima Zhao, they were killed by the other party in Jianyan. They still retain the combat power of the Dongsuan level. It is impossible for me to hold them back, even if I exhaust my origin. And I have offended that evil spirit. It will definitely not let me go. It seems that I can only do it according to Shenji's method. Kenya sighed slightly and made a decision in her heart. In front of the altar where the 7-star map was suspended, Master Chuyu, who was still confronting the girl, chuckled and said, "Even if you have a backup plan, Kenya will take care of it." Kenya, just relying on her, a waste who was injured by a boy in the refining key realm. The girl glanced at the clear light emitted by Chuyu, and did not act rashly. Unless it was absolutely necessary, she did not want to try the great magical power of Demon King binding again. "You underestimated that, Master Zhao Chen." Chuyu shook her head and said, "How could I underestimate an outsider who entered the cave at this time? It's just that from the moment he entered the Empress's bedroom, he has been used by me." The girl said confidently, "You don't know what the Empress and Qin Sheng saw here at the beginning. They can't betray me." Chuyu's face changed slightly, but then calmed down, and smiled and said, "It seems that you don't know yet." "What don't I know?" The girl was puzzled. "I don't know that Master Zhao Chen is best at dealing with women." "What?" The girl was full of doubts, but she immediately sensed something, and her delicate little face became extremely ugly for the first time. "How could it be? The Empress and Qin Sheng actually got rid of my control. Also, when did Kenya develop such a powerful self-defense magical power that she completely ignored the attacks of two beings of the same level?" After saying this, she was about to give up the ancient ritual and control the 7-star map to support the Tu Li family Dongsuan in the resentment pool. After all, compared to looking for daddy, it is more important to pollute the cave. But a clear light came at this time and blocked her way. Beside the resentment pool, Kenya, who was dressed in red, had a cold face at this time. She let the magical powers hit her body, but she didn't care. Instead, she released a sea of blood and rolled back. Although she couldn't defeat the two Dongsuan real people of the same level, when she was alone, she bought time for Li Yashi on the other side to absorb the resentment. As long as the resentment in the resentment pool is reduced by 1/3, the power of the Yunxiu Golden Crow Crown can gain the upper hand again, and there is no need to worry about the arrival of external forces and polluting the entire cave. In a passage not far from the pool of resentment, Zhao Chen and Qi Fimeng were carefully using their spiritual senses to watch the battle of the cave. It was not good to be careless. If you saw something you shouldn't see, it would not be as simple as falling into fantasy. As for the other masters, they were sent by them to clean up the other arrangements of the evil spirits in the Imperial Mausoleum. It seems that the Empress and Qin Sheng saw something terrible here, so they died immediately and were replaced by me, and the trust of the Imperial Grandmother in me also came from this. Qi Fimeng smiled and explained at this time, "The reason why she has been letting you act is that she really thought I controlled you. After all, the foreign cultivators who entered the cave at this juncture did not stop her plan at all. There must be a reason, right? It's a pity that the fruit position of the Bodhisattva is probably above the source of the power it attracted. It turns out that you have always known what the source of the matter is, and you have secretly planned so many things for this, putting me in the open as a cover. This makes sense." Zhao Chen nodded slightly. He was not angry about being used. After all, Fei Meng needed to deceive a demon at the Dongsuan level, so it was inevitable to be cautious. Moreover, she actually deliberately let out some clues, but she realized it later and only figured it out now. Although Fei Meng had a lot of ideas before, she was not so meticulous. This is because she has some additional attributes of her personality, which she has not yet completely digested and restrained. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen asked curiously, while preparing to return at any time, "How did you convince Master Kenya to take the initiative to deal with the Dao evil transformed by Jiang Yan? And why did she trust me so much that she was even willing to trade with me under the 16 gold Stolibra sword?" Seeing the question, Qi Fimeng hesitated for a moment and replied, "In fact, I just revealed some of Jiang Yan's details to her through Qin Sheng, and she deduced most of the facts on her own. And the demon daughter who helped us deal with Jiang Yan was also her initiative. As for why she trusts you so much, well, the wisdom of any Dongsuan Zenran cannot be underestimated. I guess she must have discovered some secret about you and thought she could get something good from you, so she took the opportunity to get close to you. After all, it's not as efficient to curry favor with someone through your granddaughter as it is to do it yourself." Qi Fimeng's last sentence was meaningful. Although this is the case, why do I always feel that you are implying something to me? Zhao Chen was speechless and continued to watch the battle between Kenya and the two Dangsha and Zenran. In fact, the reason why Kenya was able to ignore the opponent's magical attacks was due to the protection of her own products by the Big Sun Star Chariot, that is, the Bloodlock function. But this does not mean that Kenya sold herself completely, but only made a transaction. She exchanged her 10 years of ownership for 10 minutes of shelter from the Star Chariot. Of course, this 10-minute shelter fee must be paid by Zhao Chen. And Zhao Chen had no idea that the 16 gold Star Libra sword had the function of actively leveraging the power of the Star Chariot. This kind of shelter seems to be an upgraded version of the spell-like ability of the escort that enhances the effects of defensive spells and items. It seems that the system I obtained is actually consistent with the ability of the itself. In addition, the ability of the 16 golden Star Libra sword to leverage the power of the to complete the transaction seems to be available after approaching the pool of resentment, or, in other words, approaching the "sorry, I have been busy these 2 days and didn't find time to write during the day a little late." The next chapter will be around 10 o'clock. Chapter 261 Return and Inventory. And it's not just the 16 golden Star Libra swords, the demon sealing vermilion pen, the 8 diagrams bright light mirror, and the purple light ring all have some functions that they didn't have before. For example, in reality, I seem to be able to mobilize the power of the demon sealing vermilion pen. Although it can't be compared with the power in the Star Chariot, and the price is quite touching, it is still a powerful trump card. I no longer have to wait for the evil spirits to invade my soul before I can use it. This makes me really feel like the master of these things. The Cloud Sky Golden Crow Crown. The crown is a symbol of authority. Perhaps its function is to enhance my authority in the Star Chariot, and I can enjoy certain benefits even before I get it, just when I'm close to it. It should be because its spirit, the treasure crown girl, made a transaction with me. Finally, this act of leveraging the power of the Star Chariot to provide shelter for Kenya through a transaction actually made the escort quite digestible. Starship Guardian, like Galactic River Transport Deputy Envoy, should benefit himself while protecting the goods. As his thoughts ran wild, Zhao Chen's eyes became more and more fiery as he looked at the light at the bottom of the pool of resentment. But unfortunately, with the two monsters transformed by the Dangsha and real people of the Li family there, it was difficult for him to get close. What's more, the resentment in that pool was not something he could bear at the moment. Of course, the most important thing was that there were less than 3 minutes left before returning, and there was no time for him to plan carefully. I can only wait until the next time I come in. Sighing slightly, Zhao Chen said to Qi Meng beside him, I'm afraid Qin Sheng's obsession can't be fulfilled this time. Jiang Yan's daughter is too powerful, and we can't deal with it now. It doesn't matter. As long as the Star God relic can be used again, and the connection between this cave and the high-level evil spirits is cut off, it will only become weaker and weaker. The time of the two worlds is independent of each other. When we come here next time, maybe only a few seconds will pass here. Qi Meng responded with a smile. She was not in a hurry. After all, the time to complete the incarnation obsession was relatively wide. In this way, the two spent the last 3 minutes chatting and watching the show, until the two of them completely disappeared in the cave world, and the battle between Kenya Zenran and the two Dangsha monsters did not determine the winner. But Li Yashi, who was absorbing the resentment on the side, was the first to undergo a mutation, and together with the refined corpse, he turned into a monster with an astonishing breath. The resentment in the resentment pool had long been polluted by an unknown existence. At the beginning, Qin Sheng and the Empress died completely after just one look, not to mention practicing with the help of Li Yashi. When practicing any martial arts, at a high level, the improvement of Taoism and immortalization are actually on the line, and it is even more dangerous to be related to evil spirits. Kenya knew that this move was almost destined to create an evil spirit, but compared to letting the girl pollute the entire cave world, she could only choose the lesser of two evils. The last thing Zhao Chen sensed was the scene of the evil spirit transformed by Li Yashi rushing towards him with an astonishing momentum, and an angry girl's scream from far away. In the Great Sun Star Chariot, in a magnificent palace shrouded in mist. After returning to Daksha, Zhao Chen who had a good sleep, entered here after breakfast, and counted his gains from this trip to the worry-free cave heaven. First of all, I got 3 more magical skills. They are the Great Light Code of the Ming Cult, the Blood Shadow Divine Art of the Blood God Sect, and the Yin Spirit Demon Scripture of the Yin Demon Sect. Among them, the Great Light Code is the worst, and can only theoretically create an 8th grade magical power Wings of Glory, but even so, it can still be sold at a sky-high price to casual cultivators. As for the Blood Shadow Divine Art, Kenya mortgaged her ownership to me, and sold the Danxo and part of the skills to Xingcha. But if you want to watch it, you have to exchange it with star coins. But I don't need such a high-end skill as a reference now, and the exchange price is really expensive, so I have only exchanged the part below the magical power. Unfortunately, the core skills of the heavenly demon that I want most are still not there. Secondly, I got the ownership of 4 more people, leaving Baogwen, Konglin and Yanshun alone. Kenya is a genuine Danxo and Zenran. But when I left the cave before, the voice only asked me whether I wanted to take Konglin and Yanshun away. Baogwen is easy to say, her real body is in the cave. Of course I can't take her away. As for Kenya, maybe it's because of the incomplete ownership. After thinking for a while, Zhao Chen clicked on the Jade book again, and browsed through the names and introductions of the precious materials in the inventory. These things were looted by Qi Meng from the royal treasury, and they were all given to Zhao Chen, together with the heavenly demon bless spell, as the appearance fee of Tang Mao. Since the vitality contained in the practice materials will be lost quickly after leaving the treasury, Zhao Chen has no better way to preserve them, so he can only sell them to Xingcha, and then buy them back at a higher price. A few minutes later, his eye stopped on a material called King Mu Yigang, which is the gang key needed to practice King Di soul protecting sword key. Zhao Chen himself can't use it, but after Sister Hangsha cultivates the White Emperor soul guarding sword, he can give it to the other party as a reward. Also, among the materials for refining the small 5-element Yunyuan Fire Thunder Pearl, I already have the 5-element Fire Thunder Ganki and the 5-element Fire Evil in my hand. This time, I found the Holy Spirit Yunki Pearl and the 1000-year lightning struck wood in the Li family's royal treasury. Now, the only thing missing is the Yunyuan Gold Fire Evil, and I can find someone to try it out. The small 5-element Yunyuan Fire Thunder Pearl is a magical tool. The method of refining it comes from Feng Wan, the 7th hero and the 7 heroes of the South Desert. She presented it to Zhao Chen in Yunlu Villa to repay the favor of saving her life. The Yunyuan Gold Fire Evil is only a little more precious than the common evil spirit, and it is relatively easy to search for. It should be available in the market in the state capital. Well, if you really don't have it, you can ask King Guyan for help. While thinking in his mind, Zhao Chen tapped the Jade book again, and turned it to a new page. On this page was the fake 5th grade talisman granted by the 7 stars chart. Zhao Chen was worried that once he left the cave, this fake talisman would be taken back, so he simply sold it and exchanged it for use when needed. Moreover, there were many masters in the Zuanshan realm, and he was also worried that people would notice the clues with this fake talisman, which would cause unnecessary trouble. Chapter 262 Precognitive Painting. A day in heaven is 1,000 years on earth. A week passed in the cave, but it was just a moment here in Daxia. In the 8 Treasures Tower in Wuya Valley, Zhao Chen, whose spirit had withdrawn from the Great Sun Star Raft, sighed, and then stood up to hone his swordsmanship and gunfighting skills. Although these fighting skills have naturally reached the pinnacle under the blessing of the escort position, they will gradually become rusty if they are not reviewed and consolidated frequently. As for internal strength, it is too slow to practice on his own. At most, he can work hard on his control, but he has no intention of practicing hard on his own. After all, having experienced the position bonus and the high feeling of dual cultivation, Zhao Chen really does not have the patience to accumulate it on his own. It is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. Sighing slightly, Zhao Chen wiped the sweat off his face, then put away his sword and musket, preparing to take a shower and change clothes. At this time, he heard the voice transmission of Yi Ki Sword Zeduo Hong, saying that he wanted to see him for something. Zhuo Han was the head of the Gyuan sword school that occupied the Gate of Sand Mountain, a Gangsha monk with the 8th level of magic power, who was forcibly subdued by Zhao Chen with a replica of the 16 golden star Libra sword. Of course, Zhuo Han was still a retainer of the Li family's young master Li Yunfeng, so every time he came to visit Zhao Chen, he had to be secretive. Hearing his request for a meeting, Zhao Chen directly released the formation arranged around the 8 treasures building, allowing the dark sword light it transformed into to fly in. "Greetings, my lord." Zhuo Han, who appeared from the sword light, knelt on the ground and saluted respectfully. "Get up." Zhao Chen nodded and asked casually, "How is the matter going?" Zhuo Han stood up and replied, "My lord, the market in Wu'ao Valley has been basically rebuilt. I have forced the Yunying sect, King Feng Village, Sun Family and City Lord's Mansion to take part of the profit shares according to my lord's wishes. Yunying sect, King Feng Village, Sun Family and City Lord's Mansion are the forces with Gangsha monks near Yichen besides Gyuan Sword Sect. What are their reactions?" Zhao Chen said with interest. "The old Taoist Yunlangzi is more forbearing. The Yunying sect has no complaints on the surface, but their hatred for me is probably deeper. Although the Sun family is also a relative of the Li family and has a good relationship with that master Yunfeng, they will definitely write a letter to complain. If I act like this, the Li using offering in the City Lord's Mansion didn't have much share to begin with, so this little loss is not painful and seems insignificant. Only the Stone Village Master of King Feng Village reacted most violently and even wanted to start a fight to compete for the share according to the rules of the martial arts world. Zhuo Han told the story of each family. Before coming to Yicheng, Zhao Chen had some knowledge of the surrounding forces. He knew that King Feng Village was not a village of bandits, but a place where several big families lived, relying on a black gold iron mine for their livelihood. The craftsmen in King Feng Village were of good quality. The various weapons and firearms made of black gold were quite popular among the true key and refining monks, and it could be regarded as a major pillar industry in Wu'aofang City. Now Zhuo Han Qiang wanted the other party's share of the interests, and the owner of the Shizhe was naturally not happy. "Very good." Zhao Chen nodded with satisfaction after hearing this. Anyway, Zhuo Han was the one he was going to throw out to take the blame, so the more he was hated, the better. Then, he clapped his hands, and a white-haired old man came out of the compartment. This old man was Yan Shan, the left armor king of the Mengjiao in Wu'ao Cave Heaven. When he completed the task and left the cave heaven, the voice without fluctuations asked Zhao Chen whether he wanted to take Yan Shan and Konglin, 2 of his possessions, back to Zuanshan. At that time, Zhao Chen thought briefly, but decided to only bring Yan Shan out. There are 3 reasons for this choice. First, Wu'aofang City has just been ravaged by the disciples of the demon sect. As a legitimate descendant of the Yin demon, it is not appropriate for Konglin to appear here, and Yan Shan has a bright magic power, so he will not arouse suspicion. Second, compared with Yan Shan, who has been in charge of teaching affairs for decades, Konglin, a young saint, has almost no experience in doing things. At most, she can only be a thug. Zhao Chen is not short of thugs in Daksha, but there are fewer people who can do things and are worthy of his trust. After all, when he gets the Yunxiao Golden Crow crown back, the historical fog at the entrance of Wu'ao Cave Heaven will inevitably dissipate. At that time, there is a great possibility that it will be connected with Wu'ao Valley. If you don't prepare in advance, you may not be able to keep the secret of the Cave Heaven. Third, Zhao Chen has already had a lot of scandals on Zuanshan's side. If there are more beautiful girls around him for no reason, it will be even more difficult to explain. This is Yan Shan. This is Zhuo Han. Zhao Chen introduced the 2 people and then continued, "I will leave Yichen today, and then old Yan will represent me here." "Well, your task is very simple." Zhuo Han continues to suppress the local forces, and old Yan unites those forces to fight Zhuo Han and consume each other's strength. Yan Shan didn't care about this request and directly responded with a yes. Although Zhuo Han was unwilling, he couldn't disobey Zhao Chen's order at all, so he had to reply in a low voice, "Yes, sir." However, Zhao Chen didn't keep suppressing him, but threw a copy of 3 Demons Return to Origin Sword Sutra annotated by Konglin to Zhuo Han. Three demons return to origin. Sword Sutra was originally Zhuo Hong's family practice, but it was not exquisite. In the eyes of Konglin, a direct descendant of the demon sect, it was full of loopholes, so even if it was a casual annotation, it was valuable to Zhuo Hong. After making arrangements for his exclusive occupation of Wuiyao Valley in the future, Zhao Chen sent away 2 men and returned to the top floor of Babao building to take a comfortable bath. In the small town of Jinchang, more than 300 miles east of Yumen, there is a 3-story building with a Western style. Li Wei, a painter who had participated in the same gathering with Zhao Chen, Yan Hongxia, Tao Zhao and others, lit a candle, then closed his eyes and chanted a spell devoutly. Woo! The wind suddenly blew in from the window, causing the candle flame to shake violently. An indescribable, extremely terrifying smell quickly filled the room. Suddenly, Li Wei opened his eyes, and his originally light blue eyes were pitch black. He picked up a paintbrush that had been prepared long ago and started painting with the various colors of oil paint on the table, so fast that his whole body was shaking. Soon, a beautiful girl with silver hair and red eyes quickly appeared on the drawing paper, with a very prosperous street behind her as the background. Snap! The paintbrush in Li Wei's hand fell on the paper, and his body twitched a few times. Lord Garland, this predictive painting was very successful. She is the child of prophecy we are looking for. Levi, whose eyes quickly returned to blue, rubbed his forehead and said excitedly to Garland, who had been guarding beside him. Chapter 263 Lucky Cat. Garland is a man in his 30s, with a high nose bridge, thin lips, and obvious Western features. At this moment, after seeing the prophecy painting drawn by Levi, his originally extremely pale face actually had some abnormal redness, and he said excitedly, "Good. Very good. Immediately copy this painting, and then send all the people to find the son of prophecy." Before he finished speaking, he suddenly woke up and changed his words. "No. This is likely to allow spies from Vlad, Camilla and other families to also obtain news of the son of prophecy. It would be bad if they find our son of prophecy first. Well, Levi, just copy the background in the painting and let others find the specific location of that street. Only you and I know the appearance of the son of prophecy. There are too many people staring at me, so the future of our Garsha family is in your hands, Levi." While speaking, Garrett had a look of expectation on his face. Painter Levi nodded solemnly and said, "Don't worry, Lord Gallard." After Levi left with a serious look on his face, Gallard clapped his hands, and then a black shadow emerged. Zinzini, with Levi attracting attention in the open, "Your task is to find the girl in the painting as soon as possible and bring her to the teleportation array leading to Linar Port. If the son of prophecy is found by people from other families first, you will directly lead the people from the moon worship there. If we can't get it, other families can't get it either." The black shadow was obviously Gallard's true confidant. He had no objection to his orders and disappeared after responding. Whether the Garsha family can continue to exist depends on this time. Even if we are guilty of the ancestor, we can't retreat. Ahem. Gallard coughed violently several times, and a phantom of a red moon appeared faintly on his forehead. In the southeast of Ganzhou, there is a small town only 30 miles away from the provincial capital Shanghai. Li Changsheng, the young master in green robe who had been indulging in pleasure in various towns in Ganzhou for 7 or 8 days, sat in a tea house, looking at the man with a scarf covering his face in front of him and said, "Second brother's apostrophe DEMON clone is becoming more and more sophisticated. Now I can't even calculate the approximate location of your original body." After speaking, he sighed slightly and condensed 2 transparent spherical substances imprisoned by magic power in his hands. He said lightly, "These are the seeds of gluttony and arrogance that you fostered in my and my third brother's souls, and they have been ripened by extreme emotions. I have taken them as promised. You should let your fourth brother go, right?" The man with the scarf covering his face looked at the 2 spheres for a few times and laughed. "You are worthy of being the former Dornguan Zenran. You are efficient in doing things. But why are there only yours and your third brothers? What about the 5th sister's laziness and the 7th sister's lust?" Li Changsheng spread his hands and said, "The whereabouts of the 5th sister and the 7th sister are unknown now. I can't find them at all. How can I get them?" I can calculate where the fifth sister is. You, who are much better than me in calculation, don't you know? The man, that is, Ma Lao's clone, sneered, but did not embarrass Li Changsheng anymore, and said, but Zhao Chen is indeed a bit tricky. The fifth sister is really good at finding a place. As for the seventh sister, she disappeared after the Qingyan Tower incident. I guess she either fell into the hands of the Star Society, or was locked up by the Feng family, or also obeyed Zhao Chen. Since you also know the difficulties, what about the fourth brother? Li Changsheng asked in a serious voice. Give me those 2 sins, and I will release him immediately. Human County City, Jinbio Martial Arts Hall. Gongyun, the black cat named Superhuman by Zhao Chen, was now scratching the cat tag on his neck with his claws in frustration. After recuperating for half a month, especially with Zhao Chen's music, to stimulate the 5 immortal spiritual energy to heal her wounds, her injuries finally improved, and the power injected into her body by the Feng family's Dongsuan master gradually subsided. It was also at this time that she recovered a little bit of her eyes that break delusion, and saw through the function of the cat card on her neck. Concentric child and mother card, can hear my voice. Then Zhao Chen must have known who I was from the beginning, and he pretended not to know, and stroked my fur every day, checked whether I was male or female, and even took me to be sterilized. What a bad guy. But he risked offending the Dongsuan monk to protect me, and played the piano, to help me heal my wounds. When Ma Guangliang sent people to arrest me before, it was also his men who protected me. And the most important thing is, that when I was thinking about the master, he must have heard it, but the master didn't remind me. Could he be a favored one of the master as well? Hey, he and Yan Hangsha have been gone for several days. Has he forgotten that there is a kitten at home waiting for him to play the piano? The little black cat's face revealed a trace of melancholy in a humane way. But at this moment, a chuckle came from her ear, and then her whole body was lifted up by a pair of big hands, and then held in his arms. The person who came was Zhao Chen, who had returned from Sand Mountain in Yicheng. While stroking the cat, he smiled and joked, if you want to listen to the piano, shouldn't you pay something? Strange to say, before she knew that Zhao Chen knew her details, Gongyun thought that it was no big deal to be rubbed a few times, but after the card was revealed, she felt very embarrassed. She struggled to jump out of Zhao Chen's arms, jumped onto the bed, and got into the quilt. The next moment, with a wisp of green smoke, the black cat disappeared, and Gongyun, who had the eye that breaks delusion, poked her head out from under the quilt. When the quilt moved down, her shoulders were half exposed, and it was obvious that she was not wearing a single piece of clothing. Zhao Chen glanced at her a few times and asked with a smile, are you not pretending anymore? You know everything, so what's the point of pretending anymore? It's easier to talk if you turn into a human form. Gongyun, lying on the bed wrapped in a quilt, replied rather depressedly. Zhao Chen half turned sideways, his eyes tilted towards the direction of the door, and said, put on your clothes first, and then we'll talk in detail. Gongyun shook her head and said, my injuries are not healed yet, and I can't maintain my human form for long. No need to bother. You can't maintain your human form for long? Zhao Chen turned around and asked curiously, it's like you're a cat. Zhuanshan does have cases of animals becoming spirits and transforming into humans, but they are extremely rare. After all, animals have no wisdom and cannot practice cultivation. Most of those who can become monsters are evil spirits and still only act on instinct. Gongyun answered a little dazedly, I actually don't know what I'm now. Since I got the transformation technique, I feel that I'm getting more and more accustomed to being a cat. By the way, the name of the 6th grade talisman that the master gave me is Lucky Black Cat. Maybe it's because of this? Kevin, it's a bit late. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264 Transaction. Lucky and Black Cat? What a weird name. In comparison, my Starship Guardian and King Gaon's Dragonborn are much more normal. When Zhao Chen was feeling very lucky, he heard Gong Yun continue to say, "Anyway, my time is limited. Let's talk business first. Master Chen, you should know that I was seriously injured, but do you know who injured me?" Zhao Chen already knew the answer to this question, so he nodded and said, "It was the great elder of the famous Feng family, Flying Snow Fairy Feng King." He really knew. Gong Yun glanced at him and asked in surprise, "Since you know that this matter involves the real person Dongsun, you still dare to take me in?" Zhao Chen smiled and said meaningfully, "I even saved Feng Wan, so you are not a big deal. Seventh sister is really protected by you." Gong Yun looked at him deeply and really regarded Zhao Chen as her own. When the seventh sister disappeared, she sensed the advent of a power similar to that of the master. Later, she discovered that her thoughts were being monitored by Zhao Chen, and that the master did not remind her. She guessed that Zhao Chen might also be a follower of the master. Now that the other party said this, it was tantamount to admitting it. Gong Yun organized her sentences and told Zhao Chen all the conversations she had overheard between Feng King and the 10,000 Beasts sect master Shen Wansheng that she had overheard that night in Dunhuang. At the end, she said solemnly, "So I have to recover from my injuries as soon as possible, appear in front of people as Gong Yun, and fabricate my reasonable whereabouts during this period, otherwise it will easily arouse a suspicion of that master." After all, the time of my disappearance was quite suspicious. After she has checked the magical monks who were near Dunhuang at that time, she will most likely turn her attention to me. When the time comes, you who protected me may also be in trouble. In fact, what Gong Yun overheard was not actually dangerous to Feng King. Not to mention that there was no evidence, even if she got the evidence. In addition to making Feng King's reputation worse, the Li family, who had a tacit understanding with her, would be more vigilant. Want to convict a Dongsuan real person with such a thing? That's impossible. It was precisely because there was no life-threatening danger if it was leaked that Feng Wan did not use too drastic means to investigate. Otherwise Gong Yun would not have been able to hide for so long. Zhao Chen knew this from the beginning, so he chose to provide shelter to the little black cat. Of course, coveting the master behind her was also one of the main reasons. After listening to Gong Yun's words, Zhao Chen compared it with the intelligence he had obtained before, and only then did he know that behind the Kingayan Tower incident, in addition to the 3 evil blades trained by Song Wuyuru, there was actually another true disciple of the 10,000 Beasts Gate who was operating. The reason why Feng King cooperated with the other party was for the longevity elixir. Feng Wan and her mother were killed one after another because they disagreed with letting many of their fellows in Dunhuang become sacrifices for the Star God Sky ceremony and wanted to inform on the secret. Fortunately, as one of the 7 heroes of the South Desert, Feng Wan needed to show up in Dunhuang, so she was kept alive by the replica of the 16 Golden Star Libra sword and became the other party's puppet, which also gave Zhao Chen the opportunity to save her life later. That fairy Feng is really cruel and ruthless. Her own descendants kill at will. She is really not someone who is easy to deal with. Zhao Chen sighed a few times and looked at Gong Yun on the bed and said, "If I do my best to help you heal your wounds, how long will it take you to recover?" In theory, it will take at least a month to initially resolve the Dongsuan power in my body. But in fact, as long as I'm nourished by the 5 immortal spiritual ki for a few days in a row, some of it will be cleared away, allowing me to reconnect with the master, and it will be easy to resolve. Gong Yun showed a expression. Get in touch with the master, the suspected star chariot accessory? Zhao Chen hesitated for a moment, and then reiterated the original question. I can help you with this, but what can you pay for it? I've been rubbing for you for so many days for nothing. Isn't that a price? Gong Yun pretended to have an expression that you made a fortune. Zhao Chen was unmoved and said with a smile, "What is the price? Isn't that your duty as my little black cat?" Seeing that she couldn't get away with it, Gong Yun had to take a deep breath and asked seriously, "What do you want?" Zhao Chen didn't answer but asked, "Can your transformation technique change into my appearance?" Of course it can, but it can only imitate the appearance and breath. The internal structure is still myself. In addition, due to the huge difference in our body shapes, the time I can change into you every day is probably limited. Gong Yun thought for a while and replied, She roughly guessed what Zhao Chen wanted her to do. Appearance and aura are enough. Zhao Chen smiled and nodded. I need you to move around human in my appearance for the next month, and it would be best if you can show up frequently. In addition, since the green robe young master has spread the news that Ma Guangliang has fallen into the devil's way, you have a ready-made excuse for your disappearance since the King Iron Tower incident. Just say that you are hiding from him and have been hiding with me. Wait a few days until your injuries recover a little, and you can inadvertently reveal some traces in the escort agency so that those who are interested can find out. You've thought it through very carefully. Gong Yun glanced at him and then smiled a little teasingly. I don't care, but aren't you afraid that your reputation will get worse? Zhao Chen shrugged and said helplessly, since your transformation technique can't always maintain my appearance, it is inevitable that Gong Yun will show up in the escort agency. It doesn't matter if it's earlier or later. As for reputation, it's been unclear since you sat on my lap. Who would have thought that Master Chen, who infected the peach and plum blossoms of the world, would actually worry about his reputation getting worse? Gong Yun covered her mouth and smiled, then continued, are there any other conditions? Yes, Zhao Chen nodded slightly and said solemnly, when you contact the master later, I want to be present. Gong Yun looked at him strangely, but nodded in agreement without any hesitation. Afterwards, this graceful female knight supported herself with one hand, and wrapped in a quilt, she glanced at Zhao Chen and said, then let's start healing. Now. Zhao Chen was a little surprised, but still prepared to get his Gukinjinuxio Huanpei. But Gong Yun pursed her lips and smiled, and said with a hint of charm, in fact, in addition to music, there is a more efficient way. Come closer and I will teach you personally. The implication in these words was too obvious. Zhao Chen naturally understood what it meant. But in his impression, although this female hero Gong didn't care much about reputation and her style was quite bold, she really shouldn't be such a casual person. Although he had doubts in his heart, Zhao Chen, who wanted to see what she was up to, walked to the bed and sat down. Seeing this, Gong Yun, with her head down, showed a sly smile, and then deliberately let go of the edge of the quilt in her hand. The next moment, the quilt lost its support and fell on the bed, and a black cat poked its head out of it, tilting its head to look Zhao Chen in the eye. The next chapter will be at 10 o'clock. There were a lot of things to do over the weekend, so I didn't have time to update the chapter at noon, sorry. Chapter 265 Luzhen. Outside the east gate of Human County, in a quiet little building next to the dock, several people dressed as businessmen gathered in the lobby on the first floor, listening to a song and talking about what they saw and heard at the Jinbio martial arts school in the county city a day ago. This gathering called Exposition held by the Golden Art Martial Arts School is really interesting. They actually brought out so many rare treasures that are not found in the western regions. Yes, there are several kinds of gems and minerals that are obviously produced in the North and the East China Sea. In addition, there is a yinling wood, which is also quite rare. It is a good material for making talismans and magic tools. Not only materials, but also many calligraphy and painting works. Some of them are of very high level, but their authors are completely unknown. I heard that, although the owner of the Golden Art Martial Arts School, young Master Zhao Chen, is young, he is proficient in piano, chess, calligraphy and painting. Maybe he did it himself, but didn't sign his name. Hey, that young Master Zhao is not only handsome, but also has excellent talent for cultivation. His martial arts are very strong. He has even reached the level of masters in piano, chess, calligraphy and painting. I envy and admire him. Yesterday I was fortunate to hear young Master Zhao Chen playing the piano. It was really lingering in my ears for 3 days. From then on, I will never hear any other piano music again. I also listen to that fairy sound. No wonder so many heroines in this county are in love with him, and even the daughters of noble families from other states are very fond of him. Speaking of this, there is another interesting story. Do you know the heroine Gong Yun, the eyes that break delusion, one of the 7 heroes of the South Desert? Don't keep us in suspense. The name of 7 heroes of the South Desert is well known. Is there anyone who hasn't heard of it? It is said that Ma Guangliang, the second hero of the 7 heroes of the South Desert, fell into the way of the devil and used despicable means to frame several sworn brothers one after another. Even his eldest brother Ma Guangming fell into his hands, and heroine Gong was almost killed by Ma Guangliang, and she escaped the disaster by fleeing to the mansion of Master Zhao Chen and getting his protection. So Miss Gong has been recuperating in Master Chen's mansion these days. When Master Zhao Chen was playing the zither yesterday, she happened to be serving by his side and was seen by several knights who went to the expo. I heard before that Miss Gong and Zhao Chen had a close relationship, and I thought it was a rumor. I didn't expect it to be true. But that Ma Guanglian is at the top of the human outstanding list. Even Miss Gong can't deal with him. How did Master Zhao Chen protect him? You don't know this. It is said that Master Zhao Chen is protected by a master of divine power. How could Ma Laoer deal with him? They talked lively, but they didn't notice that in the single room upstairs, a man with a decadent temperament heard their conversation, picked up a glass of worry-free wine in a depressed mood, and drank it with his head tilted back. This worry-free wine was originally called Bingquan wine, and it was also a product of the Golden Art Martial Arts Hall. It has been very popular in the human area. Sitting opposite the decadent man was a young man in a green robe, with white powder on his face and dark circles under his eyes. Seeing his friend's heartbreak, he sighed and ordered a courtesan who was good at playing and singing and had a deep and clear voice. It's still the same old rules. The young man in the green robe nodded slightly to the courtesan, then poured himself a glass of wine and drank by himself. The courtesan also recognized the young man in front of her and was used to it. She sat casually, played the pipa, and sang soft and graceful songs. Along with the beautiful voice, the young man in green robe accompanied the decadent young man to drink for a quarter of an hour. When he was slightly drunk, he picked up the wine pot, slowly stood up, walked to the window, pointed to the endless desert across the giant river and said, "Fourth brother, I know you feel very guilty about hurting my vitality and that of the third brother, and you are also sad about not being able to protect the fifth sister, forcing her to rely on Zhao Chen. Even the death of the seventh sister, you took it on yourself. But this should be the motivation for your revenge in the future, instead of being a shackle that imprisons your spirit like it is now. After drinking this wine and getting drunk, you should cheer up, practice hard, and seek revenge on Ma Guanglian." This young man in green robe is naturally Li Changsheng, the sixth of the 7 heroes of the South Desert, and the one sitting opposite him is Lu Zhen, the fourth who was released by Ma Guanglian as agreed. However, at this time, Lu Xingcha no longer has the high spirits of the past, and the whole person gives people the feeling of sorrow. This is not surprising. He was trapped in various illusions by Ma Laoer and tortured repeatedly. His own anger has been completely taken away, and naturally he can't get motivated for anything. Even when he heard that his beloved fifth sister was serving Zhao Chen in the martial arts hall, he just drank and didn't express anything else. In addition to experiencing things that were more unbearable than this in the illusion, it was also related to his mind full of disgust for himself. This sudden loss of emotion is most likely to cause psychological problems. As a former dancer and real person, Li Changsheng has a strong mind and can naturally adjust himself. Jansen has experienced too many storms. Even if he is not feeling well for a while, he will recover sooner or later, so there is nothing wrong with the two of them. Only Lu Xingcha, who had always been smooth sailing, fell into the vortex of self-abandonment and couldn't extricate himself. Under such circumstances, although Li Changsheng's words made sense, Lu Xingcha still didn't listen to them. He just took a sip of wine and muttered, "Once, yes, I once fantasized about advancing my magical powers, becoming a great hero, and marrying my fifth sister. But I was powerless when my fifth sister fell into Ma Guangliang's hands and was about to be humiliated by him. I could only watch. I once thought that I would never betray our sworn brotherhood, but I was controlled by someone in King Gaianta and pointed a sword at my fifth sister. And my seventh sister also disappeared in front of my eyes afterwards. I could only watch. This time, my seventh sister was attacked and seriously injured by Ma Guangliang. Not only did I not know anything about it beforehand, but I also fell into the hands of the other party. In the end, I was able to survive with the sacrifice of my sixth and third brothers. I'm just a waste. Fifth sister is right to seek shelter from Zhao Chen. He can protect fifth sister, but I'm just a waste. Waste? He was a bit nagging, saying whatever came to his mind. The singing girl playing the pipa beside him saw the young man in green robe winking at her and immediately understood, and the song gradually became more passionate. At the same time, Li Changsheng also snatched the wine glass from Lu Zhen's hand and said seriously, "Waste. You, Lu Zhen, are one of the 7 heroes of Emonan. You call yourself a waste, so where do you put us brothers and sisters? I won't say much to you. I'll just ask you, now there is a chance for you to repay the kindness of me and my 3rd brother. Will you do it?" Lu Zhen looked at his 6th brother with hazy eyes and nodded after a long while. "As long as it is the order of my 6th brother and 3rd brother, I will go through fire and water without hesitation." "Very good. This is actually the task assigned to you by my 5th sister." Li Changsheng handed a note to Lu Zhen and said, "The content of the task is on it." Lu Zhen pursed his lips. His expression was complicated, but he finally took it. It was written on it, "Investigate the whereabouts of the 3 cloud crowns. A new week. Please collect, recommend, and vote for me." Chapter 266, Drizzle Tower. The new mission you got from your master is to find the whereabouts of the 3 cloud crowns. In the backyard of the Golden Art Martial Arts Hall, Zhao Chen looked at Gong Yun, who was sitting on the bed, and asked with a strange expression. After a few days of nurturing with the spiritual energy of the 5 immortals, Gong Yun's external power was finally partially eliminated, which allowed her to contact the master smoothly and get his help. Of course, the help of the master is never free, so she also received a new mission. "Yes. You don't have to worry about me breaking my promise, because I have entrusted this matter to my 6th brother. He is from the Li family and is good at calculations. He is much more informed than me. Although I have to be treated by the master, Feng Qing's power level is too high, and the price I can pay is not enough to eliminate it completely, so I still have to hide here with you for a while, just in time to pretend to be you." Gong Yun, who was dressed as a maid, responded with a smile. At this time, her injuries had greatly improved, and she could maintain her human form longer, so she naturally put on clothes, and no longer just wrapped in a quilt like the previous times. "The transaction between us has been notarized by the 16 golden star Libra sword, so what is there to worry about? What I really find strange is why your master has similar goals to mine. Can my will interfere with it?" Zhao Chen did not sell the information he had about the Yangxiu crown to the other party, but nodded slightly and said, "I'm still at ease with you doing things." Gong Yun narrowed her eyes when she heard this. If she was still in the state of a black cat at this moment, she would probably lift her tail and show her belly. "This Miss Gong seems to be more and more like a cat in front of me. Is she tamed? Or is she affected by the lucky black cat talisman? But she didn't seem to be like this before she was raised by me. Could it be the effect of the spiritual key of the 5 immortals?" Amidst his thoughts, Zhao Chen resisted the urge to scratch her chin. After all, doing so in the other's human form is too. Shaking his head to get rid of the dirty thoughts in the dark, Zhao Chen changed the subject and said carefully, "After yesterday's expo, your whereabouts are no longer a secret. Ma Guanglian didn't mention it. If Feng Qing came to find you, how would you deal with it?" The so-called exposition is essentially a promotional event for the many treasures of the Dalian royal family that Zhao Chen had looted from the cave. Those things are not worth much star coins if they are sold directly to Xingcha, and they are not even recorded as commodities by Xingcha, but as rare things in Ganzhou. They can be exchanged for a lot of money, and Zhao Chen's next plan does require a considerable amount of funds. "I'm a small gangsha cultivator. Although my breaking delusion eye is famous, Feng Qing should not suspect me for a while." As he said, Gong Yun glanced at Zhao Chen with a smile in his eyes, and continued, "Besides, do you underestimate the deterrence of your master Chen? With a daughter of a noble family openly supporting you, and a top-grade magical power person protecting your safety, even a Dangsuan real person is unwilling to make enemies with you for an uncertain little thing. After all, whether it is Zheng Qinggyan or Tang Mao, they are both expected to achieve Dangsun, and their future achievements are likely to be higher than her Feng Qing. It has been nearly half a month since the assassination at the city gate. Naturally, Tang Mao, who destroyed the Yinzi branch with the 7 stars death at that time, was also investigated by those who were interested in the origin. Although the identity of the Jinshamu family's side branch cannot compare with the Zheng family's legitimate daughter, it is not something that an ordinary prominent family can provoke. What you mean by this is that I'm very successful in eating soft rice? Zhao Chen couldn't help but laugh at himself in his heart and said, on the surface, it's still a little unsafe. In this way, I will let King Gan stay here for a while to deter the villains, and then you can cooperate with her in front of people in my identity. In addition, the 2 Western servants are left in the martial arts hall are also at your disposal. After all, what he was plotting was the fundamental skills of the Li family. Once he succeeded, it would likely anger this behemoth in Ganzhou, and Zhao Chen's identity must not be allowed to have anything to do with it. As for whether Gong Yun would leak the secret, Zhao Chen was not worried at all. After all, in a sense, she was already his one. That fairy from the Zheng family really obeys your orders. Gong Yun muttered, and then began to study with great interest how to rehearse the next play. Shanzhou, Biao Mountain. This mountain is located at the junction of Shanzhou and Ganzhou. It is emerald green and shrouded in a layer of fog all year round. There is only a winding path leading to the town on the mountain, which is quite secretive. One day, 2 figures came from afar and walked into the fog. The fog around this mountain will make people lose their way. Only monks who have opened their eyes can see the path and enter it. A young man dressed as a scholar introduced to Zhao Chen beside him. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeves and the thick fog parted in the middle. With Brother Bei's cultivation, it wouldn't be difficult for him to get in, even if he hadn't met me. At this time, Zhao Chen was wearing the magic weapon transformation cloak and transformed into the appearance of Bei Shixing seen in the historical mist. He said happily, that being said, without Brother Fang's guidance, I don't know when I can find this market. Thank you very much. The scholar surnamed Fang waved his hands and said, Brother Bei, what are you talking about? If it weren't for Brother Bei's help, I would have been killed by the Qian 3 evils long ago. It's hard for me to repay Brother Bei's kindness. After Zhao Chen explained everything to his little black cat that day, he went to find Sister Hangxia to duel practice for a night, and then quietly left Human, activated the God Traveling Curse, and headed east. However, he did not go directly to Zhanghai, the state capital, but bypassed the capital of Ganzhou, crossed the border directly, and entered Shanzhou. The reason for this is that Zheng Qinggan helped him arrange a reasonable identity that can withstand investigation. The scholar next to him is Fang Beiyu, who is a descendant of a cultivation family attached to the Fian Mountain, a major sect in Shanzhou. He has opened 4 orifices, but his key cultivation has not even completely opened up the 12 meridians. When he was traveling outside, he offended the local bandits Qian 3 evils because of his chivalrous deeds. He was surrounded by this group of bandits and was about to die when he happened to meet Zhao Chen, who was on the road and was saved. At this time, facing Fang Beiyu's gratitude, Zhao Chen smiled faintly and just followed him to the halfway point of Beiyu Mountain and entered a stone gate. In an instant, the ground became much flatter, and the stilt houses that came into view were built on the mountain, constantly winding upwards. The cultivators from hundreds of miles around like to come to this market to hang out and exchange what they have. Fang Beiyu pointed at several huge buildings and introduced them to Zhao Chen. That is one Beiyu's Hay, where you can buy many refining materials. This is Xianding Fang, which is an industry of a lower house of the Danding Xianzang, one of the upper sects, with a complete range of elixirs. And if you want to buy various scriptures and books, you have to go to the Zilai opened by His Royal Highness the King of Qin. By the way, I heard that an extremely powerful interpreter of texts has recently come to Zilai, named Zhuan Taoist, who claims to be able to interpret the true meaning of many Daowen. A few days ago, a female knight took a family inherited martial arts method that she couldn't understand and tried it. As a result, she got a true sword technique that directly pointed to the realm of supernatural powers, which caused a sensation. However, this Zhuan Taoist priest seems to have come all the way west from the coast of the East China Sea. He will not stay in this Beiyu market for too long. Maybe in a few days he will continue to set off westward to the territory of Ganzhou. Brother Bei, if you have any Dao characters that you want to interpret, you must make an appointment as soon as possible. Zhao Chen's eyes lit up when he heard this, knowing that this Zuanten Taoist should be the identity that Fei Meng prepared for him. Even the reputation has spread to such an extent, I don't need to work hard to build momentum. Fei Meng is so considerate to do this. Why did you choose to settle down in the Qinhuang's industry? I remember that the Zheng family and the Qinhuang didn't seem to have much friendship. Although he was a little confused in his heart, Zhao Chen said on the surface, then let's go read the classics first. I'm somewhat interested in the Xiaoyu Tower. Konga has a lot of things to do, it's late again sigh. The next chapter will be around 10 o'clock I think. Chapter 267 Golden Light Curse. Fang Beiyu was not surprised at all by Zhao Chen's choice. Even a cultivator like him who came from a cultivation family would always go to the market to see if there were any spells suitable for him. After all, the inheritance of most cultivation families and sects was not enough to make up the 18 life spells required for the Gangsha realm. If one bought a spell by chance, not only would it accumulate for his future cultivation, but even if he took it back to his family or sect, he would get a huge reward. Not to mention those casual cultivators who had to fight for the inheritance of a spell. In this regard, Zhao Chen, who had many inheritances and could choose from a variety of spells, seemed to be blessed. Alas, how difficult is it for small sects like us to obtain a powerful spell that suits our own skills? Fang Beiyu sighed meaningfully, that's why everyone is keen on deciphering a few words from various Dao characters. Unfortunately, those with low inspiration can't understand the Dao characters at all, and those with high inspiration either die or go crazy after studying the Dao characters. But the manuscripts and translated handwritten copies they left behind before they went crazy can be studied and used by cultivators. Even if they are incomplete, their value is sometimes even greater than the original. Such a result can also highlight the preciousness of a professional master of deciphering texts. No wonder the master said that the most valuable part of the secret record of Kigan and the 12 doors of the Golden Tower and J Chamber was his translation, while Xingcha gave the opposite judgment. Well, the master is not a serious decipher, he just relied on his previous high level of cultivation and the transformation of his soul to forcibly decipher its meaning. Therefore, although the skills he obtained can be practiced, it has completely lost the original true meaning. Most of the masters of interpretation in this world are actually those who rely on the strength of their souls to force interpretation like this. But according to King Iron, the real masters of interpretation are actually a group of people with extremely high comprehension, but their cultivation methods are very special, and they will not be easily contaminated by the source of Dao Wen. In addition, the most powerful master of interpretation in the world is actually King Gion, the contemporary temple priest of Dragon King Temple who published Dragon Food Essentials. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen and Fang Beiyu walked into Xiaoyu Tower together. After entering the huge door, what came into view were rows of shelves, built with warm sunwood, on which were placed books that were either new or simple. The reason for using warm sunwood is that in addition to being used as fuel, it can also prevent knowledge from contaminating objects to a certain extent, causing some things to produce spirits. Of course, the warm sunwood is only the most basic means of protection. In addition to it, there are naturally other restrictions with the same effect in Xiaoyu Tower. Zhao Chen walked straight to one of the wooden racks and found a small label on it, Golden Light Mantra, one of the inner door magic spells of the Dragon and Tiger sect, can condense the protective golden light, resist all evil outside, and cultivate oneself inside. Price: 600 strings of cash. And behind the label, there are several booklets lying quietly, but they are sealed by an invisible force, and even the spiritual sense cannot be seen. It is obviously the secret book of practicing Golden Light Mantra. After Fang Beiyu saw it, he curled his lips and said, "This Golden Light Mantra has been flooded, since it was taken out of the mountain gate by the traitor of the Dragon and Tiger sect more than 10 years ago and widely spread. It is sold in almost every market. It costs 600 strings of cash. It's a bit expensive. After all, if it is not combined with the fundamental skills of Langhu Mountain, this thing is just a beautiful golden thing. If you expect it to defend against the enemy, it is better to buy a better soft armor." Langhu sect is located in Fuzhou and is one of the 9 major sects. There are at least 3 Shengsa and True Lords in the sect, which is the top force second only to the 3 holy places. Such a sect actually has traitors, and the magic spells in the sect are widely circulated. Zhao Chen felt that the matter behind this might not be so simple, but he did not delve into it. He just glanced at it casually and looked at another bookshelf. At this time, the clerk in the store interrupted after hearing Fang Bei's words. "Sir, you may not come to the market for a few days. It's not only our Xiao Tower's golden light mantra that has increased in price, but all the stores selling classics. The golden light mantra has increased in price." Hearing this, Zhao Chen stopped and looked at the clerk with interest, and Fang Bei also asked curiously, "Why?" The clerk, who had been waiting for this, opened the conversation and said incessantly, "Didn't the guests hear? Zhang Rumeng, a true disciple of the Dragon and Tiger sect who has cultivated the first grade magical power 9 returns and 7 returns of Dragon and Tiger Golden Pearl in this generation, entered the world for training. When he arrived in Bazhao, he saw the evil organization performing a blood sacrifice, and he killed 34 people of the organization with the golden light mantra alone, including 6 magical cultivators. Later, Lin Yang, a true disciple of the Xingxiu school, one of the upper sects, arrived and exchanged a few moves with Zhang Rumeng, but his Xingxiu thunder method could not break Zhang Rumeng's golden light body protection. It is said that Zhang Rumeng has just turned 18. He will definitely be able to occupy the position of Xiangang Star at the Star Assembly 3 years later. The true disciples of the upper sect and the core descendants of the family usually only become prodigies after they have achieved supernatural powers. The true disciples of this generation of the Dragon and Tiger sect have also come out to travel the world. This golden light curse has shown its power. No wonder the price has increased. Hey, 18 years old. The Zheng family's daughter who recently came to Ganzhou seems to be 18 years old too. And Yuan Langzi of the Danding Xianzong in Maishanzhou, Sima Jianan of the Sima family in Liangzhou next door, have all achieved supernatural powers before they were 20. Compared with them, I feel like I'm living a dog's life. Thinking of himself, who was also only 18 or 19 years old, but had only 4 orifices of cultivation, Fang Bei could not help but feel a little self-pitying. However, his talent was indeed just average. Also from a small family, Yan Hangsha had already obtained the Heaven and Earth Granting Scroll and achieved magic power when she was 18. I hope that, when I'm 18, I can also have the demeanor of these disciples from the upper sects and aristocratic families. Zhao Chen was fascinated for a moment, and then he seemed to be fooled, and bought the golden light curse casually. In response, the clerk smiled happily, and when he was happy about his considerable performance, he heard the sucker ask, "I don't know how to make an appointment with the master of Zuantan to interpret the text." Because he made a fortune from him, the clerk introduced enthusiastically, "The master usually comes to collect the articles that need to be interpreted at Chenxi and Shenxi, and the guest can directly give them to the master of Zuantan at that time. With our store as the notarization, there is no need to worry about your skills being replaced or embezzled." Shenxi, that means there is still more than half an hour left. Zhao Chen looked at the clock in the store and was about to take a look at the books here. When the other party arrived, there was a sudden noise outside Xiao Tower. "The 7 evils are coming. The 7 evils are coming. Hide quickly." Chapter 268 7 Evil Monsters. Hearing the name of 7 evils coming from the street, Fang Beiyu and the clerk of Xiao Tower suddenly turned ugly, and the latter couldn't help blurting out, "Why did this old devil come to the market? How dare he come to the market?" After muttering a few times, he suddenly reacted and hurriedly said, "Don't worry, sir. Xiao Tower is the property of Qingqin. Even the 7 evils dare not make trouble here. And the owner of the Beiyu Mountain Market, Shen, will not let that old monster do whatever he wants." He was a little guilty at first, but the more he talked, the more he felt that it was true, and in the end he became more confident. Seeing this, Zhao Chen turned his head to look at Fang Beiyu, whose face was still pale, and asked, "Who is this 7 evils? It seems that everyone is afraid of him." Seeing the question, Fang Beiyu carefully transmitted the voice. "Brother Bei is from another state, and he doesn't know the fierce reputation of the 7 evils. He is a local cultivator with magical powers, and got his name from the extremely powerful 7 evil sword he cultivated. This 7 evil sword is both his innate magic weapon and his fundamental magical power. It is said that at the very least it is of the 5th rank, or even the 4th rank. Coupled with the top-notch swordsmanship of the 7 evils old monster, in the realm of magical powers, there is almost no rival except for those from the upper sects and aristocratic families. Although this 7 evil sword is called 7 evils, it actually refines one's own 7 emotions into it, which causes the old monster's temperament to become extremely strange, and it is not an exaggeration to describe it as moody. Once you have an encounter with him, if you say something wrong, he may vent his anger on you, which may result in limb loss or even death. There is an elder in my family who had his arm chopped off by him for no reason. The remaining mana and true essence in the wound has not been eliminated until now. It is worse than death. Fang Beiyu clenched his fist unconsciously when he said this, but then he loosened it again, his face full of frustration. So what if he is angry? Can he, a cultivator of refining orifices, go to a cultivator of supernatural powers to reason? He is so rampant, even if the Taoist office does not care about the disputes between cultivators, the 6 gates that specialize in public security will not ignore it, right? And even if the government does not care, Shanzhou has the Danding Immortal sect, one of the holy places, sitting in the capital, and the prominent families and major sects affiliated with this sect will not lack top-grade supernatural powers. Is there no one who is chivalrous? While Zhao Chen was puzzled, he asked this question. Fang Beiyu stammered a few times, and finally said helplessly, the old monster Kisha is actually the head of the 6 gates. It turns out that he is a court lackey like me, but this person has such a fierce reputation, but he has not been arrested yet. Either he has a strong background, or he is hurting people for no reason. Is there a reason? As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen, Fang Beiyu, and the clerk had come to the window of Xiaoyu Tower. Looking out through the bright glass, they saw that the streets of Fangshu were empty after a chaos, and more than 10 seconds later, a middle-aged man walked over slowly. His hair was curly, but extremely messy, his face was full of beard, he wore a black eye patch on his right eye, and a narrow black sword was slung around his waist. Old monster Kisha. Seeing him, Fang Beiyu shouted hatefully. But this did not attract the attention of the middle-aged man, because there were countless people in the nearby buildings cursing him with gnashing teeth. At this time, an old man with white hair and a youthful face, leaning on an exquisitely shaped black wooden staff, walked down from the air step by step, and landed not far from the 7 evils old monster, and sighed, Brother Luo, can you give me a face and retreat today? The real name of the 7 evils old monster is Luo Sheng, but the nickname is too loud, and not many people mention the name itself. This is the owner of Biao Mountain Market, Biao Old Man Shen Tong. Ha. I know that you, Shen, are good friends with Kanianzi from Fian Mountain. Today I will give you a face. As long as you hand over Zizongchi, I can let Kanianzi go first. The old monster Kisha snorted, but he didn't completely ignore him, as if he was a little afraid of the shop owner in front of him. Zizongchi, isn't that the dead scion of the Z family in Black Wine Fort? I remember that he was learning martial arts in Fian Mountain. Is it the people of Fian Mountain who are trying to protect him? No, it should be just the personal behavior of the man named Chan Yunzi. Zhao Chen's heart moved, and he roughly understood the situation in front of him. At the same time, he had some guesses about the background of this old monster Kisha. No wonder he is so rampant. Is he working for that princess? Upon hearing this, shop owner Shen smiled bitterly. The reason why brother Kanianzi has fallen to this point is because he is protecting his disciple. How can you ask him to hand it over now? I owe Kanianzi a favor, and I have to repay it. So I beg brother Luo to be flexible for one day. After they leave my Biao market tomorrow, I will never interfere in this matter again. How about it? After hearing what he said, the 7 evils laughed out loud. Then his face changed, and he asked in a cold voice, I respect your reputation as old man Bu, and you are taking advantage of me. That Zizongchi is a remnant of the 4 evil halls. Do you want to associate with evil spirits? Old man Bu Shen Tong tried his best to explain. The kid from the Z family has been examined many times, and there is indeed no trace of believing in evil spirits in his soul. What's going on in his family should have nothing to do with him. But before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by the seven evils, saying, not to mention, that as the family has been doing that disgusting thing for more than 10 years, so Zhangqi couldn't be unaware of it. Even if he is really innocent, so what? It is a serious crime for a cultivator to believe in evil spirits and harm the people, which is a serious crime of confiscating property and exterminating the clan. As a direct descendant of the Z family, he naturally has to atone for it. What's more, the kid was specifically named by the princess to be executed. It is our dereliction of duty that he can survive until now. The old monster Kisha didn't say the last word, but his flying sword had already been unsheathed, pointing directly at old man Biu, and shouted, I'll ask you one last time, are you going to hand over the person or not? Shen Tong was obviously a little embarrassed. He closed his eyes, but when he opened them again, his eyes were firm. He cupped his hands and said, I hope brother Luo will forgive me. Very good. The old monster Kisha didn't say anything more, raised his hand, and chopped out a sword energy. Swish. The sword light was magnificent, like thunder and lightning. The old monster's man and sword were one, and a sword light burst out and shot out, as agile as a swimming dragon and as graceful as a startled swan. At the same time, the green gem on the top of the black wooden stick in the hands of old man Biu also emitted a dazzling light, and in an instant, a round of emerald green moon appeared, emitting a strange light. Because this emerald green moon light was like a liquid, extremely viscous, thunder rumbled, and the sword light flashed, tearing the moonlight, but then it was deeply trapped in it, getting slower and slower. Very good. Your Biuzan Shen Guang is indeed the nemesis of sword cultivators. 55,555. There were a lot of things to do in the morning, and I didn't have time to update at noon. The next update will be between 10 and 12 o'clock. Chapter 269. Shen Yunzi. In Xiao Tower, seeing the sword light of Kisha rolled monster stagnated, Fang Beiyu immediately clapped his hands and laughed. Master Shen's Biuzan Shen Guang is really powerful. Kisha old monster usually relies on his sharp swordsmanship to run rampant, but this time he has met his nemesis. The clerk was also smiling, but a little worried, but the Kisha old monster seems to be really doing business this time. If Master Shen stops him like this, he may get into trouble. I heard that Master Shen was born in the side branch of the Yangdi Shen family, and the ancestor of the Shen family was a disciple of the Danding Xianzang. He should not be afraid of the 6 gates. Fang Beiyu said uncertainly. They both obviously disliked Kisha old monster and stood on the side of Master Shen. Although Zhao Chen also disliked the style of this head constable, since the matter involved the Z family, he would never sit on the side of Master Shen. The backstage is just a side branch of the family founded by an inner disciple of the Danding Xianzang. It sounds so low level. Zhao Chen curled his lips, but he also knew that this background was actually quite impressive. Although it was not as good as Zheng Qingyuan and Tang Mao, it was similar to the brothers Ma Guangming and Ma Guangliang. And Ma Laowa was not mentioned. Ma Guangming was not as good as the Shen Fangsu in front of him. However, since Shen Fangsu's reputation as the sword cultivator nemesis is well known, the 7 evils who dared to come here to ask for people must have been prepared. Zhao Chen deliberately sang the opposite tune. As if to confirm his judgment, a small flag suddenly flew out from the sword light transformed by the 7 evils. It swayed in the wind, and the sticky green moonlight suddenly dimmed, and the stagnation effect was greatly reduced. It was broken in one fell swoop by the 7 evil sword with pure color and flowing light waves. Yellow sky flag. Brother Luo actually used a magic weapon. Why did it come to this? Seeing that his Biuzan Shen Guang magic power was broken, old man Bu smiled bitterly, but he did not dare to fight against the sword light of the 7 evils. He only sighed. I have seen brother Luo's determination, and I have tried my best. I'm worthy of brother Kenyunzi. I will retreat now. But the 7 evils Luo Sheng turned a deaf ear to this, and slashed at Shen Tong relentlessly. Seeing this, old man Bu had to use his other magic power Biuzan Shen to transform into several figures in an attempt to confuse the 7 evils. but his body had already been locked by Luo Sheng's sword light. Although it was not aimed at the vital points, it seemed that the opponent would not stop unless he paid the price of serious injury. Just when Old Man Bu was about to release the protective magic weapon to resist, 9 chains appeared out of thin air, and then thousands of clouds gathered, and a point of mysterious light appeared in the middle, which actually blocked the 7 evil sword that was cut down. The 4th grade magical power of Phi Iron Sect, 9 ropes connecting clouds and mysterious light. Humph. Kang Yunzi, you really can't help but come out. The old monster Qisha snorted coldly. He was just separated from the sword light by the mysterious light, and then separated into 7 sword lights, forming a big dipper 7 killing sword formation. Fellow Daoist Shen risked his life for me, because of our old friendship. If I hide in the dark again, and cause fellow Daoist Shen to get injured, wouldn't I be failing my friendship? Kang Yunzi is a middle-aged man with ordinary facial features. The only thing that makes people impressed is that his lips are very thin. The closer you get to him, the more you can feel the inhuman feeling on him. While Kang Yunzi was speaking, he was still manipulating the 9 magic chains of 9 ropes connecting clouds and mysterious light, constantly stirring the clouds and eliminating the power of the old monster Qisha's sword formation. The feeling of inhuman on you is so heavy. Obviously, you are seriously injured and can no longer suppress the pollution of the source of your 3rd grade magical power, right? Heh. I understand. Old Man Bu stood up for you because he was worried that our fierce battle in the market town might aggravate your Dao transformation, or even cause you to forcefully use that magical power and directly turn into a Dao evil, causing heavy damage to the market town. The voice of the 7 evils old monster was loud, so that everyone in the market town could hear his words clearly. Firstly, it was to suppress Kang Yunzi's momentum and make him hesitate to let go. After all, Kang Yunzi is an elder of a righteous sect and a human, so he naturally does not want to turn into a demon. Secondly, it is also to remind other cultivators in the market town that this place is dangerous and they should make preparations early. Don't worry. As long as you don't risk using the yellow sky flag again, I won't use the flying cloud order. I will only fight your 7 evil swords with 9 ropes and clouds mysterious light. No, it should be called Big Dipper 7 killing swords. Kang Yunzi laughed loudly, and then he waved his arm lightly, and the 9 thick black chains in the sea of clouds were like 9 black dragons, rushing out and entangled with the sword light separated by the 7 evils. Then, from the depths of the sea of clouds, a mysterious light emerged, as straight as a sword, and pierced directly into the natal flying sword of the 7 evils in the sky. Iron chains subdue demons, and the magic sword kills evil. Snap. The sword light separated by the 7 evils shattered, but the Big Dipper 7 killing sword had already taken shape at this time, and the killing intention, the aura of death, and the sharp feeling suddenly invaded Kang Yunzi's soul. The sword tip had not yet arrived, but the sword intention had already caused Kang Yunzi's soul to suffer severe pain, and he almost couldn't maintain his magical powers. At the same time, Kang Yunzi's Cloud Sea mysterious light sword key also approached the 7 evils old monster, causing his defensive magical powers to shatter. But just as both sides were about to lose, Kang Yunzi suddenly vomited a mouthful of dirty blood, and then his entire aura quickly declined. Not only did his magical powers fall, but he couldn't even maintain his gangsha and magic power. He fell all the way to the key realm before he could barely stabilize, and his magical powers naturally dissipated without a trace the moment his aura declined. Seeing this, Old Man Bu Shentong, who had no intention of intervening, sighed and used Bu's Iron Shen Guang again to freeze the Bidao killing sword that was about to fall on his friend. In response to this situation, the 7 evils old monster also frowned and did not forcefully break through Shentong's obstruction. Your injuries are not healed yet. Did you take the broken jade pill? The old monster Kish narrowed his eyes, but then he thought of something. His powerful spiritual sense quickly swept through the market, and then he said with a very ugly face, "You took this pill and forced a battle with me just to let your apprentice escape. Then what kind of ecstasy did Zhangchi give you to make you do this for him?" The old monster Kisha was very puzzled. It was just the family of a 4 evil whole evil disciple. Was it necessary for a top grade supernatural power to fight to the point of destroying the foundation? He originally thought that the princess's task was easy to complete. You don't understand. Kan Yunzi shook his head. His face was pale, but his expression was relaxed. Give up. The teleportation array has been opened, and Chia has left Shanzhou. At this point, he took a few deep breaths, and then continued, I surrender. You can do whatever you want to me. Chapter 270 Zhuanten. Broken jade pillars, a kind of elixir that can forcibly stimulate the origin and push one's own strength to the peak state for a short time, but when the effect of the medicine is over, the foundation will be destroyed, and one's strength will be reduced to 1/10 of what it was. Not to mention the old monster Kisha. Even old man Bu Shentong couldn't understand why his old friend would do this for a disciple from a demon family. Most practitioners are selfish. Although after achieving supernatural powers, the cultivators will more or less have some things they insist on. Just like old man Bu values kindness and Wang Daoi values chivalry, but there are very few who can put themselves aside for these insistents. Humph, do you think that, if you leave Shanzhou, Zhangqi can escape the pursuit of the princess? The old monster Kisha snorted coldly, then stretched out his right hand, with his 5 fingers slightly bent, and a stream of evil spirits extended from his fingertips, turning into ropes to tie up Shen Yunzi tightly. Then, he glanced at the old man Bu with his vicious one eye and said coldly, as for you, Luo will report to the Lord of the Divine Detective that you hindered the officials from arresting the murderer after returning. Hearing this, the old man Bu smiled bitterly again. Not only did he fail to save Kan Yunzi, but he also caused the other party to fight with injuries. It would be difficult to repay the favor. Moreover, there would be more trouble in the future. Of course, it was just a small matter that could be settled by spitting out some benefits, so he didn't care much. In Xiao Tower, seeing that this battle of magical powers came to an end, Fang Beiyu and the clerk both breathed a sigh of relief. Generally speaking, when magical powers fight, the aftermath is enough to flatten the entire Bu mountain market. Fortunately, the 3 magical powers seemed to be quite restrained and controlled the power of their own magical powers to a certain extent, without affecting the surrounding buildings. Zhao Chen was actually a little surprised about this, because he thought it was normal for old man Bu to control the power of his magic. After all, the market was his property, so he had to hold back. But it was a little unreasonable for old Kisha, who was notorious and had the task of capturing Zhangqi, to do this. Unless his reputation was all false, and he was actually a gentle person. Or, did he actually have other purposes? Zhao Chen, who didn't know much about this wind-chasing head constable, didn't jump to conclusions. In addition, his conversation with Kan Yunzi was a little deliberate, as if he was talking to someone. Forget it, it's none of my business anyway, so there's no need to worry so much. Well, once old Kisha leaves and the market returns to normal order, I will go and meet the Zhuanten Taoist arranged by King Iron, as soon as possible. Just when Zhao Chen thought of this, he saw a middle-aged man with a handsome face, extraordinary heroic spirit, but dark skin, walking down from the 2nd floor. The Taoist robe he wore was woven with gold threads, and was extremely gorgeous. There was also a peculiarly shaped jade pendant inlaid with blue gemstones hanging from his waist, which gave people the feeling of being a master just by looking at him. Master Zhuanten, why did you come down so early today? The clerk also saw the man coming down at this time, and greeted him enthusiastically. This middle-aged man was the famous master of text interpretation Zhuanten. Taoist Zhuanten nodded to the clerk and said casually, such a big thing happened in the market, how can I still have the energy to continue interpreting those classics? When someone comes to get the translation later, tell them to talk about it tomorrow. The clerk was not surprised at all by what the Taoist Zhuanten said. After all, except for those copyists who had eaten sweet potato rice for more than 10 years, the rest of the people would feel irritated just looking at those Dao texts, not to mention interpretation. That must be done in an extremely quiet environment. At this time, Zhao Chen's eyes were cast on the jade pendant worn by the Taoist Zhuanten, and he was sure that this was the identity arranged by King Gan for him. Because the sapphire on the jade pendant was the gift that Zhao Chen gave to Zen King Gan after copying the Z family. Seeing that the Taoist Zhuantan was about to return to the second floor after a simple explanation to the clerk, Zhao Chen took out a booklet from his arms, then took the initiative to step forward, saluted and said, "Master Zhuantan, I have a scripture here, and I want to ask you to translate it. Time is not yet." The Taoist Zhuantan was a little impatient, but he suddenly stopped talking after seeing the words on the booklet, then looked Zhao Chen up and down a few times, and changed his words. "The legend of Yun Lu? This is interesting. Come up with me first." "Yes." Zhao Chen bowed again, and then followed the Taoist Zhuantan upstairs. The clerk did not stop him. After all, it was not uncommon for Master Zhuantan to ask someone to go upstairs and interpret the text on the spot when he saw a book written in Dao Wen. The female hero Fang, who had interpreted the magical skill The Sword Art of Sunset and Shocking Waves, received the same treatment. In other words, it was a sentence: "The setting sun is on the shocking waves, and the sky is full of horrible waves," interpreted by the Taoist Zhuantan, that pointed out the true meaning of this sword art, and made it a skill that directly pointed to the magical power. Fang Baiyu, who often came to the market, also knew this, so he looked at Brother Bei with envy and yearning. On the other side, after the seven evils old monster made a harsh remark to the old man Baiyu, he used his evil spirit to lead Shen Yunzi, and turned into a sword light, and flew away from the market. But they did not fly far. After only more than 100 miles, the seven evils old monster pressed down the sword light, and appeared on the ground. Then, he untied the restraints on Kang Yunzi. "Okay, stop pretending. Old man Baiyu's spiritual awareness can't cover such a long distance." Kisha old monster sneered, and said with disdain, "All his family members died, all his friends betrayed him, and his master who loved him the most was detained by the 6 gates, because of his protection. After such a scene, the hatred in your apprentice's heart will sprout completely." Kang Yunzi stood up, and patted the dust on his clothes. His face turned from pale to ruddy. There was no sign of him taking the broken jade pill and being attacked. However, the feeling of inhumanity on him was stronger than before. That Wei County princess has an extreme temperament, and offended too many people. Once the king of Qin is lax in protecting her, people who want her life will naturally flock to her. My apprentice is indeed a good executor, but I don't know which Taoist friends will provide him with help in the future. Kang Yunzi said with a smile. But his smile was enough to be described as creepy in the eyes of others. However, the old monster Kisha didn't care about this. He just looked at Kang Yunzi deeply, and his tone quietly carried a little inducement power. "Then which side are you from?" "Of course I am," Kang Yunzi said halfway, and suddenly came to his senses, and then saw the 7 evil swords filling his sight. Please vote, recommend, collect, and subscribe. The next chapter will be at 10 o'clock. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271 Exchange. After a moment, the wounded Kisha-rolled monster retracted his flying sword, looked at Shan Yunzi under his feet. Half of his body turned into a monster and the other half completely turned into ashes, spat out a mouthful of blood, and said silently to himself, "Once Wei County Lord dies, the people above will track him down, and the first one to be tried will be you. So, no matter which side you are on, you are destined to die." While thinking, he cleaned up Shan Yunzi's body and checked his own injuries. Then, the Kisha-rolled monster hardened his heart, picked up Shan Yunzi's Yunhei Zhuangguan sword, used the sword control technique to control the flying sword left behind by the other party after his death, and dealt himself another blow. Before he was seriously injured and fainted, the old monster was thinking, in this way, the illusion that Shan Yunzi was kidnapped will be more real. The hundreds of years of inheritance of Fian Mountain will fall into my hands sooner or later. In the basement of an abandoned house in Anping County, Shazhao, a young man in black, stared blankly at the broken jade card in his hand. Then his eyes became bloodshot, and he cried out in grief, "Master!" He didn't dare to make too much noise, so he could only cover his mouth and tremble. When he thought of the hatred, he clenched his teeth, as if he wanted to break his teeth. At this moment, an old voice came to his ears. Do you want revenge? Shuzhao, Jingguan City. Minghangayu, the Wei County princess dressed in men's clothes, sat upright on a stone bench, playing the piano with both hands, revealing her elegant intention. The sound of the piano is high and spacious, like mountain streams, clear and moving. Soon, she stopped her hands, coughed lightly, and then picked up the information handed over by her subordinates and read it carefully. It turns out that the person who played the flute at the Dunhuang dock that day was Bloodsword young master Zhao Chen. I don't know which musical technique he practiced, but it's even better than the music score of Turtle's Longevity that I collected. However, it's also very troublesome to have a reasonable interaction with him. Although due to various reasons, Minghangayu did not ask who the flute sound came from in Dunhuang, but after arriving in Shuzhao and dealing with the four evils Hall discovered here, he secretly sent his confidant back to investigate. Putting aside the information about Zhao Chen, Minghangayu lowered his head and thought for a while, until his throat started to itch again. Then he drank a sip of tea, and continued to look at other information. Zhangqi hasn't been caught yet? What on earth is Luo Sheng doing? I lent him the yellow sky flag in vain. In addition, has Yunzhao also discovered traces of the four evil hall? Well, Yunzhao is a long way away, so I won't go there myself, and I'll just let Huang Yi and Huang Er go. With the cooperation of Yui Fang and my uncle in the Six Gates and the Daoguan office, there shouldn't be any problems. Thinking of this, Minghangayu picked up a pen and paper and wrote a warrant and handed it to the maid beside her. The maid glanced at it, frowned and said, Princess, if Huang Yi and Huang Er are sent out, what about your safety? As a personal maid, she and the princess are not a simple master-servant relationship. It doesn't matter. With Huang Sun and Huang Si here, even ordinary masters of magical powers can't get close to me. What's more, this is Jingguan in Shudu, with the king of Shu looking after it, and the real person of Jianzhou sitting in charge. No one dares to act rashly. On the second floor of Xiaoyu Tower, as soon as Zhao Chen walked out of the stairwell, he felt a barrier, which was both a defense and a protection. After all, Taoist Zhuantan collected a lot of classics written in Dao when here. If they were not handled, there might be problems. Even with such treatment, Zhao Chen seemed to feel that there were eyes in the void, with all kinds of evil colors, staring at him. Of course, since the Xingcha did not react at all, Zhao Chen knew that it was just his spiritual sense that was warning him. There were not many things on this floor. In addition to the living quarters that Master Zhuantan had sorted out, there were all kinds of bookshelves, on which were scattered incomplete ancient books, thread-bound books, parchment, black hardshell notebooks, and various scattered papers with some messy words written on them. Some people felt upset just by looking at the strokes. After the two of them simply exchanged secret codes, the Taoist Zhuantan let out a long sigh and sighed. You are finally here, otherwise I can't pretend anymore. Pretending? Zhao Chen asked in surprise. Although I can be considered a master of interpretation, my level is actually very average. How can I dare to read so many Dao characters in one breath? Exclamation mark. Of course I'm pretending. The black-faced man said as a matter of course. Then your reputation, is it because of a sock puppet? Zhao Chen said suddenly. Some of it is pure sock puppetry, and some of it is releasing the Dao characters classics that already have translations, allowing casual cultivators to get them as adventures. For example, the Miss Fang who is the living advertisement, the sunset and shocking wave sword art she got, was translated in advance. Of course, there are also some that don't seem to be so harmful. They were translated by me on the spot. Although they are not satisfactory, the owners of those classics are still quite satisfied. Zhuantan Taoist nodded, expressed his affirmation, and then sighed. However, as my reputation gradually grew, I received more and more ancient books. Now I can only find various reasons to delay, and only occasionally translate a few articles for my shills to show that I'm indeed working. Fortunately, interpreting texts is a slow and meticulous job, and no one has suspected anything yet. I will leave it to you to take over from now on. Hey, this name has been passed on to at least 4 people without being exposed, so don't let it get you in vain. As he said, he told Zhao Chen what he had done and who he had contacted in the past few days without reservation. It turns out that this is still a fraud gang. Judging from what Zhao Chen Taoist said, he actually doesn't know who he is working for. In this way, even if the Li family investigates in the future, they will probably only be able to catch 1 or 2 people in this chain, and may even think that it was the 5th generation of Zhao Chen Taoist who suddenly decided to steal the Li family classics. Fei Meng is really very appropriate in doing things. Zhao Chen sighed, wrote down what the Taoist Zhao Chen said, and then exchanged clothes and accessories with him. Then he watched the black-faced man take out a box of ointment and smear it on his face for a long time, and then put on makeup to look like Dairi Xingcha. Zhao Chen also used the ability of transformation cloak to change into the appearance of Zhao Chen Taoist. Next, the two pretended to discuss ancient books on the surface, but actually communicated with each other through voice transmission. It was not until the 3rd quarter of the evening that Dairi Xingcha reluctantly said goodbye to Zhao Chen Taoist and went downstairs to meet Fang Baiyu. The new Zhao Chen Taoist casually pulled out a classic book from the shelf, sold it to Xingcha, and bought back the translation, and read it with relish. The Origin of the Moon Worship Sect, Chapter 270 to translation. This world is coveted by several supreme beings. Although these supreme beings are blocked from this world by the Dao Lords, they are still creating their own clans and constantly trying to pollute this world. These polluted clans, if carefully classified, all have certain threads, and many evil organizations in our world are related to this. For example, the Demonwood Academy worships a being called Fusang Fallen God Tree, who is said to be the source of the Black Sunday. And the object of faith of the moon worship cult mentioned in this book is rather special, because he is the source of all weirdness, the blood moon. It is rumored that the so-called Jiaoshan heaven change is actually an outbreak of the pollution of the Zhuanshan realm by the supreme beings. After it has accumulated to a certain extent, they had already imprinted this influence on the bottom of the world long before that. So when the innate 5Te, transformed from the consciousness of the Zhuanshan world, were born, this pollution was inevitably born with it. This is also one of the reasons why high-level practitioners in our world will be Taoized and become Tao evil. That's too far-fetched. After much research, I found that the blood moon worshipped by the moon worship cult is most likely the Tai Daojin of the 5 and 8 supremes who fell into a demon. Even the major holy places have very few records about Tai Daojin. He is not as brilliant as Taichu Daojin. But according to my analysis, the 5 and 8 supremes should have each taken a different path to save the world. Taichu Daojin took the path of developing the power of Zhuanshan's own world and strengthening himself to fight against or suppress external pollution. This is also the concept of most current cultivation methods. But the only one who has truly reached the level of the Supreme Daojin with this method is Taixiu Daojin, the current Taoist master of the Daoxan sect. And Tai Daojin believes that pollution cannot be reversed, so it is better to completely fall and directly join the other side and completely pollute the world first, so that foreign demons and evil spirits will naturally not be able to succeed. So he advocates turning the entire Zhuanshan into a strange domain and turning all living beings into strange things to fight against the foreign supreme existence. This is also one of the reasons why pedestrians today encounter many strange areas at night. However, Tai Daojin's plan did not succeed due to unknown reasons. He was even split into 4 parts. One became the blood moon, hanging in the sky. One became the representative of the silver moon, and transformed into the ancestor of the vampire clan. One was obtained by Tai Daojin of the Danding Xianzang, and became one of the cornerstones of his enlightenment. And the last part was lost in history and its whereabouts are unknown. Therefore, the moon worship that worships the blood moon is a mortal enemy of vampires. The latter is even the best sacrifice of the former. There is no possibility of coexistence. As for why the author knows so many secrets, that's because I have become weird. When you finish interpreting this text, you will be a toy in my hands. Remember my name, I'm Furian, the guardian of the moon. Zhao Chen wrote and drew on a piece of white paper, and wrote down the translation of the origin of the moon worship sect after Xingcha. After he wrote the last word, the paper began to emit a strange aura, which was even more terrifying than the previous version of the text of the Tao. It could cause ordinary cultivators to suffer strong mental shock and pollution at the sight of it, and even be pulled into the strange domain constructed by the author of this article. After all, what he wrote now mentioned the names of too many great beings, and taking them out alone could kill 100 or 80 deciphers. However, Zhao Chen did not panic at all. Before the paper completely changed, he sold it directly to Xingcha. TSK, what a coward. He actually cut off the connection directly, and didn't even come to confront Xingcha head on. Zhao Chen despised the so-called guardian of the moon Furian, then took out a piece of paper, deleted some parts, and made this origin of the moon worship cult a safe reading. I don't know which guy asked Zhuan Taoist to translate it. Is he going to kill him directly? Fortunately, the previous Zhuan Tan was very self-aware and almost never touched things that he was not sure about. After Zhao Chen sighed, he seriously thought about the contents revealed in Origin of the Moon Worship Cult. Although what the so-called Furian said may not be true, it can still be used as a reference. The 5 and 8 Teich represents a way to save the world. Teichu advocated taking Zhuanshan as the foundation and strengthening itself to suppress external enemies. Therefore, the 5 Immortal spiritual key, which is the foundation of his orthodox magical powers, will have such a good effect in removing external pollution. And Dairi Xingcha is a firm believer in the if you can't beat them, then join them philosophy. It's just that he might be too radical and not recognized by other Daojins, which is why it is so divided now. The Blood Moon, the vampire ancestor representing the Silver Moon, the foundation of Daojin's enlightenment, and the unknown part lost in history. Taii is also very miserable. Like Xingcha, it is broken into so many pieces. However, Daksha is protected by a fairy formation barrier covering the entire territory, so the Blood Moon is almost invisible. Therefore, the activities of the moon worship cult are not frequent. They are more wreaking havoc in the small countries south of Yunzhou. I don't know much about them. As for vampires, I only know Ning Meng, and she hasn't fully awakened yet. I guess that the original vampire was derived from the part of Dairi Xingcha that didn't want to become a demon. He hoped to return to Zhuanshan, so his descendants were so eager for the blood of the 5 immortals who possessed the spiritual energy and represented the beauty of the Tao. This may be the reason why Fei Meng said that the original vampire could still be saved. However, I previously guessed that weirdness and weird domain might be related to my star chariot and star god. Was I wrong? Well, not necessarily. After all, Furian also said that the influence of Dairi Xingcha is only one of the sources of the weird domain at night today. With his thoughts running wild, Zhao Chen took the initiative to ignore the part involving Taoist Lord. After all, he was one of the Taoist lords of the time. He thought too much and might be noticed by him. After sorting out the safe translation, Zhao Chen took a short rest, then picked up another book written in Tao characters, entered the Star Chariot, and repeated the previous selling and buying operations. Blood sacrifice to the blood god, skull sacrifice to the skull throne. TSK, which demon sect disciple is talking nonsense before going crazy? A burning fire can burn everything, but when things die, where is the fire? A breath of Tao can obscure everything, but when things die, where is the Tao? This translation is still confusing. I hope that those who learn this formula in the future will be fine. Sleepwalking in the sea city of Rakshasa. Is this also worthy of being recorded in Tao characters? Just like that, after a night of hard work, Zhao Chen finally translated all the books that Zhuan Taoist had collected before. Chapter 273 Dragon Tiger Secton Master. Among these classics, written in Dao characters, there are certainly pit books like The Origin of Moon Worship which are full of dry goods but contain traps, but there are also some parallel goods. After all, although Dao characters themselves have inexplicable power and pollution, it is inevitable that those copyists will make mistakes when copying, and even if there is only a small mistake, it is likely to make the entire classics incoherent and incomplete, and the value will be greatly reduced. What's more, there are many traces of artificial forgery. For example, the last Western spell translated by Zhao Chen, called Law's Stinky Breath. Only the name is correct in the whole text, but the subsequent Dao characters were deliberately disrupted by the copyist in order and structure. If a person with high inspiration follows this perception, he will inevitably go crazy and turn into a monster that can only fart. Zhao Chen has no way of guessing the mentality of the copyist who did this. Maybe he was venting his anger at having eaten sweet potato rice for more than 10 years and having no hope of practicing in this life. Among these many classics, the ones that caught Zhao Chen's eye now, in addition to the original origin of the moon worship sect, were a set of exercises, a spell, and a notebook. The exercise was called the Secret Record of the Golden True and Clear Flowing Cloud Camp Jade Sound and Key Collection, which was the basic key moving method of the Kunlun Jade Pavilion. It was of the same status as the secret record of the 12 doors of the Golden Building and Jade Chamber of the Xianyang City. It could be cultivated into High Immortal Cave Key, which was the foundation of the Jade lineage's first-class supernatural power Starry Night Seclusion. The so-called Golden True and Clear, Flowing Cloud Camp, Jade Sound and Key Collection, Spiritual Wind Gathering Smoke, Purple Void and Beautiful Auxiliary Wings of 10,000 Immortals, thousands and 10,000s combined, naturally come true. The Shangming 9 Yaos Moi Great Array Formation Diagram that Zhao Chen had obtained from Yunlu Villa was cultivated with the supernatural power of the Jade Pavilion. If he could also cultivate High Immortal Cave Key, he would undoubtedly be able to exert a stronger power of the formation diagram. Moreover, as both are Kunlun exercises, the two kinds of key, 5 Immortal Spirit and High Immortal's Cave Book, are not actually in conflict. After I have mastered all 5 variations of 5 Immortal Spirit, I can try to practice this Jinzen Lang Uli Ziang Yunang Yuyan Shiki secret record, but I don't know what kind of magical power the High Immortal's Cave Book key will have after practicing it. Well, speaking of it, I have already mastered 3 of the basic exercises of the 9 meridians of Kunlun. In addition to Xianyang City and Jade Pavilion, there is also the basic exercise of the Kyanghua School, Shen Fumingyu and Guang's Heo Wuji Gong, which can be practiced into Natural Mysterious Illumination Key. Thinking of the powerful sword techniques of the Kyanghua lineage, Zhao Chen sighed with some regret. Because sword arts such as the transformation sword must use the natural mysterious illumination key to exert their power, and the method of cultivating this key only comes from the memory of the old woman Muang and the historical mist at the beginning, lacking the description and perception of the Teichu true meaning, there is a great lack. In addition, the foundation of the Kyanghua lineage is the Wuxiang Wuji Wui Shai and Sheng Shentang and the Teichu Jiushan Shai and Sheng Shin Iltang. Although the Zhu Xiangshil in great supernatural power is unmatched, the ruthless sword it pursues makes Zhao Chen unhappy. With resistance in his heart, he has never practiced it. Of course, as his knowledge grows, Zhao Chen now feels that the ruthless sword may not be the true meaning of the Teichu Daojin and the Zhu Xiangshil in supernatural power, but just a misunderstanding of Kyanghua non-core disciples such as Muang. But in this way, he is even more reluctant to practice it before getting the complete version. In addition to the magic formulas of these 3 veins, the practice method of the Demon King binding magical power of the Kunlun Zikathang lineage seems to be in the hands of Chuyu Zenran in Wuiao Cave Heaven. Next time I go in, if possible, I can also exchange it with her. So, in just 2 months of traveling through time, I have a great affinity with 4 of the basic exercises of the Kunlun 9 veins. Is this also the attraction of the fate level? Speaking of which, the position granted by Xingcha is also very consistent with these Teichu exercises. With his thoughts in a tangle, Zhao Chen shifted his attention from the Jinzen Lang Uli Ziang Yuan capturing key secret record and picked up a practice method for a spell. That was the Purifying Heart Magic Mantra, one of the 8 magic spells of the Dragon and Tiger sect. Taishang Taixing, respond to changes without stopping. Exorcise evil spirits and bind demons, to protect life and body. The wisdom is clear, and the mind is peaceful. The 3 souls are permanent, and the spirit is not lost. It is rumored that, although the 8 great magical spells are not the foundational spells of the Dragon and Tiger sect, they can still use these 8 spells to create 3 magical powers. The most famous of these is the magical power of Dragon and Tiger suppressing evil and protecting the body Immortal Light, which can be broken down into the Yin evil spells Purifying Heart magical spell, Purifying Mouth magical spell, Purifying Body magical spell, and the Yang Gang spell Golden Light spell. Especially the former, it is said that you have to go to the illusory spiritual world to collect it. but that is the home of Xinjiang Temple. Even if Dang Xuan Zenren went there, he would not dare to guarantee that he could return safely. Of course, it is not impossible to use other evil spirits instead. But if you do that, the spells will be easy to complete, but there is almost no hope of completing the supernatural power. The other two are the second grade supernatural power Dragon and Tiger Zenai Divine Seal composed of and 2 Divine Mantra, and Jingshai D Divine Mantra, and the third grade supernatural power Yunzu and Takesu composed of Zuanan Mantra and Yuxiang Divine Mantra. This is the secret of Langhu Mountain, but it is leaked in this Jinxin Divine Mantra practice method written in Dao characters. Zhao Chen has some doubts that this book of magic may have been written by the traitor of Langhu sect more than 10 years ago. I just don't know what his purpose is. But my current name Zuanten Taoist is really suitable for Langhu sect. No wonder I have such a good relationship with their magic. After mumbling a few words, Zhao Chen finally turned his attention to the notebook he had translated. The content of the notebook itself was nothing special, just telling some daily stories, but the person mentioned in it made Zhao Chen very concerned. The waves are like snow in the clear sky, and King Yu shows his power in the 9 palaces. The reincarnation of King Yu, Xianjun Zenren Huang Jiagang, Xianjun Zenren, Huang Jiagang, Huang Xianjun. Master, he is actually Dang Xuan Zenren? Exclamation mark. Chapter 274 Interview. Zhao Chen knew that his master was originally a master above the realm of magic power. He even guessed from his master's knowledge in the few words he inadvertently revealed in his daily life that he might be a supernatural power cultivator. But Zhao Chen never thought that this martial arts hall owner who could only dominate in a few small towns would be a former immortal. After all, the Dang Xuan immortal has initially escaped from the mundane world. Not only has his lifespan increased greatly, but he also has a status and can be called a land immortal. Even the immortals in Wuiyao Dangshan who have lost their positions, or reincarnated, or are struggling to survive, are still not something that ordinary magical powers can fight against. Zhao Chen had never associated the master who lost the martial arts competition to the refining cultivator with the immortal. But the description of this Xianjun immortal Huang Jiagang in this notebook is that he is the master, no matter how you look at it. What happened to the Yuan sect that year that caused an immortal to fall to the point of opening a martial arts hall in a small place like Bingquan Town? Why did master choose to stay in Bingquan Town? Finally, when something happened in Shijin Town, why did master return there? Well, maybe we'll know after Sister Hangsha and the people sent by King Gan to investigate the Yuan sect in Anai come back. As his thoughts raced, Zhao Chen developed some interest in the person who wrote this notebook in Dao characters. First of all, his strength is not lower than his supernatural powers, otherwise he would not be able to master a kind of Dao characters. After all, even the safest ancient cloud seal is extremely dangerous to people below supernatural powers. Secondly, although this notebook contains records of daily life, the geographical scope involved is so wide that it almost covers the entire Daksha, and master is just a friend who he met when he passed by Anai and had a drink together. Finally, this notebook came to an abrupt end after arriving in Anai. This may mean that the person who wrote this notebook may have encountered an accident at that time. Did anything happen in Anai at that time? When the owner of this notebook comes to get the translation later, you can ask him indirectly. After making up his mind, Zhao Chen first had a simple breakfast brought by the staff of Xiaoyu Tower, and then told him to call the people who were going to get the translation to the second floor one by one. Zhao Fu is a casual cultivator living near the Biayu market. He is only 16 years old this year, but he has already opened his eyes. Such a speed of cultivation can be said to be very good among casual cultivators, but he knows very well that this is not because he is so talented, but just the legacy of his ancestors. And that legacy has been used up. Now the only thing he can count on is the book written in Dao characters that he can't understand at all. So after hearing that a master of interpretation came to the market, Zhao Fu gritted his teeth and used all his savings to pay the expensive fee to ask the Zuanten Taoist to interpret the text. Now that 7 or 8 days have passed, there should be a result. With a complicated mood of worrying about gains and losses, Zhao Fu came to Xiaoyu Tower, but was surprised to find that there was a long queue here. After asking a little, he learned that Master Zhao Chen had already deciphered all the Dao Wenzi and was explaining them one by one. I heard that the master will leave Beifang market soon. Hey, we casual cultivators have one less way to get spells by chance. Someone sighed. Zhao Fu was about to agree casually, but heard a girl behind him ask in a pleasant voice, Master Zhao Chen, is the interpretation of the text really accurate? Zhao Fu turned around and saw a pretty girl in green clothes. She was not very old and looked immature. She seemed to be a new cultivator. Of course it's accurate. You know, Master Zhao Chen has only been in Bio Market for half a month, but he has already made a great name for himself. Even the owner of the market treats him with courtesy, as if he wanted to show off in front of the girl, and as if to cheer himself up. Zhao Fu recommended them like a treasure, like the Qiu family's magic bee needle, the Shen family's king's sword. They were originally just very ordinary refining inheritances, but after the master interpreted the true meaning contained in the text of the Tao, it has become possible to build a spiritual platform and draw the vitality of heaven and earth into the body. Not to mention the female hero Fang who ascended to heaven in one step and obtained the magical book. So although the fee is a bit expensive, it is indeed worth the money. Hearing his increasingly confident words, the green-clothed girl pressed her chest. She kept a secret inheritance close to her, but she couldn't understand the Dao text. She tried to comprehend and interpret it several times, but she felt dizzy and fainted, and then she was afraid of snakes and scorpions. Now hearing these words, her heart beat fast. But her mind changed, and she blurted out, these secret books are inherited by various cultivators. If they are given to others to translate, and the contents are read, wouldn't it be a big loss? The people around her could see that she was carrying a book written in the Dao text. An old man sneered and said, what's the use of a family secret book if you can't practice it? Now that there is a channel, it's already a good thing. Before, you could only go to Xiao Tower to sell it and exchange for some silver money. Zhao Fu also kindly reminded, although the notarized documents provided by Xiao Tower can only guarantee the authenticity of the goods, so that the interpreter will not fool people with other content, you can actually spend money to upgrade the protective measures. For example, you can buy an additional contract to stipulate that the secrets cannot be leaked. Of course, this will cost more money, but it is safer. Some independent cultivators with a small fortune often adopt this method, such as Zhao Fu himself. The girl shuddered, as if a basin of cold water was poured over her head, and she reflected on herself secretly. Yes, I'm too greedy. Now I want to crack the secret book, so I can't care about these details. If I want to take revenge, my only hope is this secret book that my father brought back at the risk of his life. The girl thanked Zhao Fu and the old man, and asked the former a lot about Master Zhao Chen in a roundabout way. Then she quietly lined up and waited for her turn. At this time, many people had already come out of Xiao Tower. Some of them were happy, some were frustrated, and so on, but none of them raised any objections to the results of the interpretation of the text by Taoist Zhao Chen. This gave Zhao Fu and the girl a lot of confidence. At this time, Zhao Chen was meeting the owner of the origin of the moon worship sect, and handed him his deleted translation. The man watched it carefully for a while, then he exhaled and sighed. So that's how it is. There is something strange behind the moon worship cult. My child forced himself to interpret this text, and I'm afraid he has established a connection with that person, which is why he disappeared afterwards. After saying that, he looked at Zhao Chen and said half warning and half tentatively, Master should also be careful. Chapter 275 Blood Sword. You know that the article The Origin of Moon Worship is dangerous, but you still give it to Zhao Chen Taoist to interpret. You really have ulterior motives. If I hadn't known you a little bit, I would have made you look good now. Zhao Chen glanced at the man in front of him, deliberately showing his dissatisfaction, picked up the teacup and said, don't bother with this, Taoist Chu, I have my own way to deal with it. When the handover was made before, the former Zhao Chen Taoist had already told Zhao Chen the information of all the clients, so he knew that the person in front of him was actually a retainer of Mr. Li Yunfeng. His name is Chu Yun. He is good at music, and he practices the magical skill Dangshi Qian given by the Li family. It has the reputation of the style is as good as the autumn moon, and the sound is as smooth as the spring cloud. But now it seems that, although he looks good, he is just a show. However, Zhao Chen guessed that the reason why Fei Meng let Zhu and Tan Taoist settle in Baihu Market was largely to hook this person. The real target was actually the young master Li Yunfeng behind him. Chu Yuan also knew that what he did was not authentic. Seeing that Zhu and Tan Taoist seemed to be aware of the danger and seemed to have something to rely on, he paid several times the cost of interpreting the text after repeatedly saying shame, which made Zhao Chen put down his teacup, but he still didn't look at him well. After apologizing again and again, Chu Yuan asked casually, I heard that the master is about to leave Baihu Market. Where will he go? I may have some classics for the master to translate later. It seems that he really took the bait. Zhao Chen pretended to hesitate and gave an ambiguous answer. Maybe he will go to Liangzhou, maybe to Ganzhou, I'm not sure yet. Shanzhou borders these two states. The Sima family of Liangzhou is a noble family, and there is no shortage of interpreters in the family. Master, you may not be able to use your talents in Liangzhou. On the contrary, Ganzhou, because it is connected to the endless desert, often has classics written in Taoist characters, which need interpreters like you to display your talents. Chu Yuan first compared the situation of the two states from Zhao Chen's perspective, and then changed the subject. Zhang Li family is a family of prestige, but they are eager for interpreters, and I happen to be on good terms with the young master of the Li family. If you finally choose Ganzhou, I'm willing to introduce you to him. Since the two of them had no friendship and even some slight unhappiness, Chu Yuan's words were just to the point, more like an apology for his previous impoliteness by introducing him. After that, he continued to not talk in depth, and after leaving his contact information, he took the initiative to say goodbye and left. This surface work is still done well, no wonder some people praise him as Feng Yi Qi Qiu. Seeing his back disappearing in the stairwell, Zhao Chen nodded slightly and gave a good evaluation of Li Yunfeng's guest. At the same time, he also reflected on his response just now and felt that his attitude was okay. It was not proactive, but it also showed his heartbeat. At this time, the next guest had also ascended to the second floor. It was the young casual cultivator Zhao Fu. And the note that he had given Zhao Chen to translate before was the note that recorded the deeds of Master Huang. But after reading the translation, Zhao Fu's face was full of disappointment, and he couldn't help saying, my family's ancestral classics turned out to be just the daily records of a certain ancestor. Zhao Chen laughed and said, this note was written by your ancestor? That young friend really has an extraordinary origin. Zhao Fu scratched his head awkwardly. He thought the master in front of him was mocking him. After all, those who could write Dao characters were at least masters of supernatural powers. As a descendant of such a great man, how could he be as miserable as himself? He knew his own family's affairs. His grandfather had died before he was born, and his father was killed by the backlash of his vitality when he was forcibly breaking through his magic power. The only thing his family could show off was the foundation building method. It was with it that Zhao Fu was able to successfully build a foundation in 100 days and achieve true energy 2 years ago. But he did not lie. This notebook was indeed left by his ancestors. You don't have to be depressed. Your ancestor was able to be friends with Xianjun Zenren, and he was probably also a Zenren. The information he left in the Dao characters should not be aimless. You can go to the places mentioned in this notebook and take a look. Maybe you can gain something. Zhao Chen pointed to the last page of the notebook and said casually, for example, the last NIE. Zhao Fu's face immediately showed a look of surprise when he heard this, and he saluted to Zhao Chen and said, thank you for your advice, master. If you gain anything, Fu will definitely reward you generously. Well, go ahead. Zhao Chen picked up the teacup and said. After Zhao Fu left with anticipation, Zhao Chen used the Star Chariot to give an order to Zheduo Hong, the head of the Guiyuan Sword School and Yiki Sword who was far away in San Mountain, to come to Shanzhou as soon as possible and secretly follow the young Zhao Fu. Even if Zhao Fu wanted to set out to hunt for treasure, he would have to spend a few days preparing, which was enough time for Zheduo Hong to come. If the senior who took notes really had any arrangements, it would be most likely that his descendants would get them. and Zhao Chen did not intend to rob others of their opportunities. He just wanted to find out what happened in NIE and whether his master lost his magic power because of the accident. After sending Zhao Fu away and making some arrangements through the Star Chariot, Zhao Chen handed the deciphered texts back to several employers one after another until a little girl in green clothes came up. She didn't come to get the previous interpretation, but to ask Zhao Chen to help her interpret a secret book written in the Great Dao language. Zhao Chen's eyes narrowed slightly after picking up the book and glancing at it, because it was really a secret book, and it was a secret book he was very familiar with, the Blood God Sects Blood Shadow Divine Art. However, the girl in green in front of him took out a fragment, which could only be cultivated to the level of mana, and even the life spells were severely incomplete, with only 2 types, Blood Transformation Palm and Red Blood Demon Sword. But even so, this is the most serious inheritance of the demon sect, which is not available to ordinary people. Where did you get this book of skills? Zhao Chen asked, while secretly summoning Ma Guangming and letting him borrow the heart control ring to use the Kaizi heart control method. The girl in green only opened 4 orifices, and her mind was controlled without any resistance. She slowly said, This is the secret book that my father brought back at the risk of his life. Who is your father? Zhao Chen asked again. My father was just a teacher in Ninghe City, but he was secretly a killer of the Yinsi. I only found out about this on the day my family was wiped out. My father led me to fight our way out of the encirclement and gave me the secret book, asking me to take it and find the blood sword, but I didn't know where the blood sword was. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.